The latest in tech suit innovation. Frictionless fiber construction. Surface lift technology. Endo compression cage. Seamless exo shell. Here, Benzo. Battleborn.
Hello, good morning. Welcome once again to the Plymouth Life Centre here in Devon for day 3, the final day of the British National Diving Cup 2019. Hello from me, Bob Ballard. It's a lovely day here in Plymouth. It's as ever very warm inside the Plymouth Life Centre and the diving pit in particular. And alongside me for this morning, for the prelims of the men's platform and indeed the women's 3-metre preliminary, is Olympic gold medalist from the 3-metre synchro in Rio, Chris Mears. Morning, Christopher.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Bob?
Very good indeed. Now, interesting men's platform coming up. We'll see Matty Lee, of course, now with his new diving partner, Tom Daly. And it's, again, a big field, 24. And again, I'd like to highlight the fact there are 6 13-year-olds up on the platform. Didn't maybe expect to see as many as 6, to be honest.
Yeah, that is a lot. But it's good for them to compete against the likes of a Tom Daly, a Matty Lee. You've got a lot of big names in there. And for these kids to be competing against these guys at that age is really good for their career.
For that, we're going to have the women's 3-metre preliminary. We're going to have 24 of those going to start. And again, there'll be plenty of youngsters involved. Just going through pretty much most of the names that you've seen in the 3-metre synchro. Kat Torrance will be in there for City of Leeds. She'll go number 17 in the mix. And of course, you kind of park what happened in the synchro and move on for the individual this morning. So lots of the names you will have seen over the first couple of days. Grace Reed will be going number 21. And we are ready to start with the first dive of the morning in the women's 3-metre from Southampton. Here's Tilly Brown with a forward 2.5.
A little bit over-rotating there. A bit nervous maybe for this prelim. Tilly Brown. 4.5, 5, 4.5. 30 points.
That's her start. Now, Holly Waxman has 3 3.0s in her program. And she will start with one of those, the inward 2.5. She'll finish on a back 2.5 and a forward 2.5 with one twist. But I think, yeah, there's quite a few going for a 3.0 opening, and she's one of them.
Now, inward 2.5 pike in a female list is a difficult dive to do in the list and to open up on it, especially with Holly's experience and age. That's a pretty gutsy move.
And a pretty decent score too, 49.5. It's a higher degree of difficulty, of course, with a 3.0, so perhaps she was hoping to get in the 50s, but it's an okay start. Maya Cutty of Southampton, the 14-year-old, forward 2.5 from her.
We're seeing again people going slightly over the end of the board, which causes her to move forwards, travelling forwards in the pike shape. Holds on a little bit too long, drifts over a vertical.
40.80 for her. On to Richelle Holden, who is going for a 2.1 opening. So the lowest tariff that we have seen so far. It's going to be done in the free position. Forward 1.5 with one twist.
That's quite a low degree of difficulty dive from the 3 metre to be performing today. But it's done fairly well. Unfortunately, 38.85. She's going to need to be better in the other rounds if she wants to get through to tonight's final.
Now, if you're watching on the first day, we were incredibly impressed by this young lady. 14 years of age, seemed to have no nerves at all. Deshan Bent Ashmiel of Crystal Palace, and she'll open with a forward 2.5.
That's a nice dive there, really nice finish. Not getting a perfect hurdle, but that doesn't matter. She'll hopefully save that for later. Steady dive to open on, 46.8. I'm really excited to see what she can do in this list, and hopefully she will be in tonight's final.
Yeah, I hope so too. Loads of promise. Very nearly got in the top 3 the other day, which was 5th overall in the 1. On to Millie Fowler of Sheffield. Again, looked quite good on the 1. Inward 2.5 from her. Her program doesn't contain anything below 3.0, so it's quite a high tariff program all the way through for her.
Oh, she squeezes that one in. Didn't get enough height out of the diving board, but she did get a really long throw and got that spinning really fast. But that's really hard to control on the end there, and you see her just drifting over a vertical.
Yeah, not quite the return she would have looked for on that. 45 is what she gets. Maria Papworth-Burrell of Dive London. Again, almost replicating Millie's program in a slightly different order. But she will start with exactly the same dive, as many will in this round. And wood 2.5.
And Maria there showing that she can cruise the dive with absolute ease, but unfortunately puts her head down in the pike shape and then again goes over a vertical like quite a few of these other girls in this first round.
So 49.5. Nobody has got over 50 yet. Holly Waxman a 49.5 and Maria Burrell with a 49.5 too. Now Fern Hitchin, City of Sheffield, 21 years of age. Lower tariff through the majority of her dives, including this one. 2.4, back 1.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists.
A little bit too far back from the diving board. The twist was nice, but as she came round, because she was leaning back, it was hard to control the dive.
40.80 is what she receives. Clara Kerr of Aberdeen. Same dive as we've just seen, the back 1.5 with 1.5 twists.
Again with this dive, it's a low DD, it's kind of a 1 meter dive, but that would just suggest that she's not comfortable doing the 2.5 twists. And again, opening up on that is probably quite brave. At 40.8, it's not amazing, but it's not necessarily a drop.
Michaela Buter of South Africa, who dives for Dive London these days. Apart from her forward 3.5 in round 4, everything is 3.0 in her program, including this forward 2.5 somersaults with 1 twist. Feet were all over the place there.
They were, and she lost a lot of height in the hurdle step there, and I wasn't sure that she was actually going to take off of the board. She did a good job. You know what, she was really good in the women's 1 meter, in the prelim especially. She really won us over. In the final, she didn't quite pull through. Let's see what she can do in 3 meter competition.
Charlotte West of Albatross Reading, only diver for that club in this competition. Seems to have a little delay for reasons I can't tell you at the moment, but she's not quite being allowed to dive because the referee's not ready, and the technology, I think, is maybe just playing up a little bit. Yeah, just confirmation of that 45 for Michaela Buter, which we put on the screen, but they obviously had to clarify that being the case. So on to Charlotte West. Her big dives come in 2 and 3. She goes up 2.8 maximum. This is a forward 2.5.
It was nice into the end of the board. She rode the board really well. Pike shape was nice, a little bit open. She took a look at the dive, and she wasn't very aggressive into the water, which is why she didn't get a rip entry there. A little bit short as well.
Well, as we mentioned with the men's platform, so we have with the women's 3, quite a few 13-year-olds sprinkled into the mix, including Evie Smith up next for Crystal Palace. Same dive you just seen from Charlotte West.
And not a great hurdle there from Evie. She had to step back because she was too far forwards, and that caused her to kind of cut off all of her height in order to perform the dive. But comes out with a pretty good score considering she gave herself a bad opportunity on the hurdle step.
So from Evie Smith, we move on to Evie Webb of City of Sheffield. Now, she's got a very mixed bunch in terms of dives. She goes down to 2.2 in the next round, but starts with a 3. In with 2.5 for her opener.
Oh, and that's just not what she wanted there. That was a bad start. Got into the pike shape. The hips went back, traveling back, and really, really hard to recover from that one. As soon as you get into the pike shape that quickly with no height, very difficult dive to perform suddenly.
You know, Evie doesn't want to see that back on the video replay. Just straight off. Don't want to look at that. On to Chloe Johnson of City of Leeds. Now, she's got the lowest tariff in the whole program, I think, 1.8 back dive.
Just a back dive pike there. That's a low degree of difficulty for the first round, especially for any round, to be honest, of 1.8. But she's obviously having issues with the back takeoffs and still wants to compete.
Yeah, and that won't be the lowest mark. It isn't the lowest mark of the morning so far. 37.8 for Chloe Johnson. Now, Callie Eagleston of City of Leeds. Another forward 2.5 we've seen quite a few of.
It's a nice takeoff there from Callie. She drifts a little bit on the entry and was a little bit cast, it's a bit sideways moving through the water.
39.6 will be her score in the opening round. Luton Diving's Amy Rollison's got some support around us for her first dive. Forward 1.5 somersaults with 1 twist. Long way back off the
She
board.
was a long way back off the
Ooh.
board there, really far back off the board. And then she propelled herself forwards. She managed to do the twist fine. It was quite comfortable, but unfortunately, just too far out from the diving board.
So first of all, I think our divers who claim to be potential winners today. Kat Torrance, City of Leeds. There's ever a big program, all threes, apart from 3.1. Of course, Grace Reed will come a bit later on in the program, and she's got virtually the same list, slightly different order. Inward 2.5 for Kat Torrance for her start.
Oh, the balance was maybe a little bit too fresh for me, a little bit too good. I think she went sideways of the board, so she will have missed it, but I think had she have been square to the board, she probably would have made contact there. That's why you've seen some lower scores there from the judges, 5.5, because actually the dive was really nice in the air and through the water.
Well, nobody has gone over 50 yet. 49.5 is actually the highest we've had. 3 divers on that. Emily Bearpark now for City of Leeds again. Inward 2.5 somersaults is her opening gambit.
She's opting for the inward 2.5 somersaults in the tuck position, not the pike like we've seen some of the other girls do. It's nice. She comes out early, pikes out, which is nice to see. 51.3, gone over that 50 mark.
Yep, first of them to do so. So she'll take the lead at the moment. Josie Zillig of Crystal Palace, 15 years of age, will go with the forward 2.5 as her starting dive.
Again, not a perfect hurdle step, but we're probably going to see a lot of imperfections in the hurdle steps, especially like we saw in the men's in the prelim, and we saw a lot in the final, in fact, of the men's 3 meter, and in the synchro too, when we saw James Heatley almost land on Yona's lap.
Yeah, this is one of the memorable moments in the first 2 days, definitely. 33.6 for Josie. Now on to Yasmin Harper of City of Sheffield. Inwards 2.5 is what she's going to start with.
That was nicely executed. Nice on the start, nice tuck position. Piked out, similar to Emily Bearpark. Not quite as good through the water as Emily. That's why she gets slightly lower score.
48.6 is the slightly lower score for Yasmin. Now, so we've had only one diver go over 50 so far. So that is your task here, Grace Reed.
I think Grace can leapfrog them and go over 60 on this.
Well, potentially she could. Inward 2.5 from her. But she may
have
have done that.
That's a nice dive. Really showing these ladies how it's done this morning. Awesome pike shape. Goes through the water very clean. Good distance, and there's our 60 points.
Yeah, well predicted, Mr. Mears. Excellent job. Mystic Meg there, or Mystic Mears, with 60.00. So she takes a sizable lead. Andrea Spendley-Syriac up next with the inward 2.5 somersaults. Crystal Palace. She pulled out her and her partner from the synchro last night.
She got that moving really quick. She put her head down on the start, which then means it's difficult on the entry to keep your head up to get an upright finish. She does drift over.
43.2. Now, we know this young lady has a lot of potential. We've seen it in bursts, haven't we? First couple of days.
Yeah, we've seen bits of good diving, but not quite all coming together.
Let's see what she can put together a good run of 5 here. Inward 2.5 for Scarlett Mew Jensen of London.
That's a nice dive. It might not get quite as much as Grace's, as she just leaves it slightly short, but the power that she demonstrated out of the ball, and she gets more than Grace. They have gone with her, probably due to the fact that the power of the dive was incredible. She opens up earlier than all the other girls on the inward 2.5 pike.
Funny enough, I'm with you. I thought there was a bit more splash on the entry as well, but there you go. The judges have definitely gone with Scarlett. 61.5 takes the lead. First round, of course, top 8. And we'll take into account the overseas divers as well. Kaylee Sinclair, last of the divers to go, back 2.5.
She just kicks a little bit too short, and the tuck shape was quite open, especially in the second somersault. Looked like she was anticipating coming out of that one. She lands short.
So 3 divers going over 50, just 2 over 60. So the leader early on is Scarlett Mew-Jensen with that 61.5. So we're on to round 2. Tilly Brown up first for Southampton Diving Academy. And the back 2.5 is her equal biggest tariff dive.
Ash, this is not what she, or how she imagined her event would probably go this morning. Coach isn't going to be happy with that one. She doesn't extend out of the board at all, just straight into the tuck shape. Doesn't get her hips through, which means there's no rotation.
21 for Tilly Brown, so 30 followed by 21. Not at all what she would have required to start the day. Holly Waxman off to a decent start, 49.5. Here's a forward 3.5.
Oh, perfectly on the end of the diving board. I don't know what went wrong there for Holly. It was fine in the air. She's in a tuck shape, a little bit of a big tuck shape, but no reason to come out at a triple. And her feet almost hit the water before her hands, which is why she only got 5.6.
I don't think she could quite believe what happened there, because 2/3 of that dive were perfect. But the moment of impact was not. So that's knocked her back after, say, a decent start. She was right up there with 49.5, but that'll knock her right back. Maya Kuti, inward 2.5.
That's a really nice dive there. She doesn't have the most power, you know, compared to some of these other girls, but what she did do there is really get our hands on that finish, and a really, really confident kick too, which is always nice to see.
48.6 will do very nicely, thank you, for Maya Kuti. Rochelle Halden of City of Sheffield, forward 2.5. She's into her dive very quickly.
Yeah, hardly any time for the whistle. The whistle goes and she's off straight away. But performs the dive quite well. So it didn't seem to be put off by the fact that she wanted to get off the board as soon as possible.
44.4 for Rochelle. Now, Dashan Ben Ashmill will build up to a big dive, which comes, well, 2 of them actually. Round 3, round 5. Inward 2.5 next, worth 2.7.
That's a nice dive. That's a nice dive. It's a really nice top. She gets good amount of height, gets into the tuck position, through the pike, gets over 50 points, which is good. I think very soon she'll be moving this dive into a pike position. I think she's quite capable of it.
Yeah, not too far away, I would think. 54 for Dashan. So 46 followed by 54. Millie Fowler up next for City of Sheffield. And forward 2.5 somersaults, 1 twist will be her round 2 dive.
That's pretty clean. Nice hurdle step. A little bit bent legs maybe through the pike shape. Comes out into the twist, very confident, but not quite finishing it off to get her them 7s across the board. But it was a good dive and good display of strength.
I was just saying off mic, she's waiting too long. She's taking too long on this, but turned out okay in the end, 57. Yeah. Maria Papworth-Burrell with a forward 3.5, worth 3.1. Biggest dive so far.
This girl knows how to spin. She does just that, gets into a really tight pike shape, but she missed her hands going into the water. She could have really took all the water down there, and I just saw her arms slightly apart from each other, which means she probably got a hand grab and then bounced out. That's really frustrating when that happens.
55.8 is what she gets, so it's okay. But it was the highest tariff dive of her program. Highest tariff that anybody will go for in this competition. Fern Hitchens, inwards 2.5 for the 21-year-old from Sheffield.
A little bit casual there in the tuck shape. Looks a little bit morning-y. But, you know, it is the morning, so we will.
That's a new word, I bet. Morning-y.
Morning-y.
Morning-y. Oh, we know what you mean. Well, 20 past 10 now, so. Now, Clara Kerr of Aberdeen, reverse 2.5.
Now the tuck shape, again, we've seen this a couple of times with some of the girls. It was a bit open. She could have done with getting into a tighter tuck shape and then the same confident kick, and that would have brought her round to vertical.
36.4 it is for Clara. Now the overseas diver, the only one we have in our program for the women. We'll have I think a couple for the men later on in the 10. But this is Michaela Bute of South Africa, who dives for Dive London and will dive with a back 2.5 somersaults on round 2.
That was just too far back there. She leant back, through the shoulders back, into the pike shape. Not the best form either. And then she lands short because she's just so far back. All the energy, she got out of the board, went backwards.
Yeah, in case you're wondering, you haven't seen before, there was a video wall, for want of a better word, at the back of the pit. And they can inspect about 30 seconds after they've had the dive. It appears on the video screen. That's what she was looking at there. Charlotte West of Albatross with a back 2.5 somersaults after a forward 2.5 to start.
And that's better in the aggression. She looked more up for that dive. Good in the tuck shape. She just kicked out too late. Didn't make her spot. She's probably trying to look for the water and then the diving board and kick towards it, but unfortunately she kicked more towards the ceiling, which then meant she over-rotated.
Not as good score-wise either, 37.80. Evie Smith of Crystal Palace up next with her inwards 2.5.
She was too quick into the tuck shape there. Too quick into the tuck shape. The knees came up. That stopped pretty much all of her rotation. And then it was just a struggle from there to get anywhere close to vertical.
37.8 for Evie. Now on to the other Evie. Evie Webb of the City of Sheffield. Back 1.5 somersaults. She starts with 3. Has a 3 in round 3, but obviously with the back dive, this is what she feels comfortable with.
And she does it nicely, but it is a 1 meter dive from the 3 meter. She'll be wanting to put another somersault on that dive as soon as possible, really, because with that tariff, you're just not going to make an impact at this level.
Yeah, it's a shame 'cause she got 3 in round 1, 3 in round 3, and 3 in round 5. So interspersed with a 2.2 and a 2.4.
Yeah.
So it's a real mixed bag, isn't it, that program? Now Chloe Johnson with her back 1.5 somersaults, 1.5 twist. Now she has a 1.8 opener up to 2.4 here.
That was a little bit too rushed into the twist off of the board. Could have waited a little bit longer and that would have lent herself a little bit better off in the dive. Would have been more stable.
40.80 for Chloe. Callie Eagleston, City of Leeds, 14 years of age. Back 2.5 somersaults. She has a couple of 2.8s back to back. Here's the first of them. That's
a good start there from Callie. Good strength. Very impressive into the tuck shape. kicks out a little bit late and just washes over, kind of doesn't keep the tension in her glutes, folds a little bit into a pike shape and then throws the legs onto the water.
Those 3 marks that don't have a line through them are the ones that count towards the total, multiplied by the degree of difficulty. That's how we arrive at 43.40. Amy Rollerson up next for Luton, another 14-year-old, and she will be going with the forward 2.5 somersaults.
Yeah, just drifted over on that one. Didn't look very confident coming out of the board. Into the pike shape. T-arms position was okay, but the head was down and just rolled that one over.
Yeah, it doesn't hit the 40 mark. 39.60 for Amy. Yeah, Kat Torrance didn't have the greatest of openings by her standards. Anyway, 49.5. It's not a bad mark, but on 3.0 with somebody with the international experience that she has. Wasn't quite what she was looking for. 50 plus, maybe 60 this time she can do it on the forward 2.5 with 1 twist.
And that's how you time a diving board. Really nice rhythm, great height. A little bit forwards, I'm being picky. About 61.5, that's more like it from Catherine. We saw obviously her first round dive coming a little bit too close to the diving board. And she seems to be back on form with that full out there.
Yeah, big dive, or the biggest dive that she has. Coming next, the forward 3.5. As we move on to her Leeds teammate, Emily Bearpark, with her reverse 2.5.
Oh, unfortunate
Never like dancing
there.
feet on the board. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, no, she was a little bit wobbly in the hurdle step, but that wouldn't have concerned her too much, but maybe it did, who knows, because she looked confident in the air, but she kicked like a salmon, pulled her arms, which seemed a little bit to me seemed quite unnecessary, because she did all the right things in the air.
I thought salmon leapt, not pulled.
She kicked and leapt like a salmon.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah, kind of. Kind of.
Banana entry, maybe,
yeah.
better.
Yeah. Josie Zillig there with a, sorry, no, in with 2.5.
Josie just put her head down on that one. You can see a bit of taping there, a bit of strapping on her back. Maybe she's a little bit injured. That won't help her cause landing on her back more.
Welcome to your morning fishy analogies.
More to come.
More to come, yes. Best known as the Codfather now. Yasmin Harper with the forward 2.5, 1 twist.
That's a good end to the dive. Just a little bit over though, unfortunately. She didn't quite get her arms above her head. The dive was forwards and it looked a little bit wayward through the air there. The twist was good. It's just a re-pike, just not what she wanted there.
46.5 is what she gets. Grace Reed, second dive after a good start, 60.00. Reverse 2.5. She'll be looking to emulate that and maybe surpass it.
Oh, Grace had to fight for that one there. You could see the board timing was good, but in the pike shape, she almost seemed to slow down as she went along. Still gets 51 out of the dive, but we know that Grace can go over 60 on the reverse 2.5 pike. It's one of the best in her list. So not the best dive from her, but it's not really a drop. And at this level, she will stay fairly close, if not indeed on the top of the pack.
Our leader yet to come though. Matt Scarlett Mew Jensen is up next. After Andrea Spendolini-Siriex with the forward 3.5.
It's great strength. Some of the other girls using this in the pike position. She's gone for the tuck. You can see why. She spins it very, very easy. Looks comfortable in the tuck shape. Comes out a little bit late, which is unfortunate because I thought that was really, really good other than the entry.
50.40, so a big improvement on round 1. Now, early leader, first round, Scarlett Mew Jensen with a 61.5 opening, and this is her big dive. 3.1, forward 3.5.
Just look at that. That is a world-class forward 3.5 somersaults pikes. The way that she's performed that Amazing ride on the board. She spins in the air so fast, but she knows exactly where she is. She comes out, she gets her hands on the finish, and she takes it home.
Now, what do we say about consistency? Seeing her do 5 good dives. It's 2 excellent dives to start off with. 61.5, 65.1. Now, Kaylee Sinclair, forward 2.5 to round off round 2.
It's a nice entry there. Looks a little bit out of control in the air. It's only a 2.5 pike, so with this dive, this low degree of difficulty, I think you could have seen a little bit more control there, Kaylee.
So end of round 2. And at top of the pile, there you go. Scarlett Mew Jensen hasn't put a foot wrong so far. 126. 15-point gap to both Kat Torrance and Grace Reed. Joint second. Rhea Burrell, Millie Fowler, and then Deshawn Bent Ashmill as your top 6. Remember, only the top 8 qualify. It'll be 9, of course, if Buta makes it through. And that's where everybody else is in the standings at the moment. Round 3 for the Southampton diver, 13 years of age, Tilly Brown. Fair to say she's not had the best to start. It's a 30 and a 21. We hope for better for her from the reverse. 2.5 somersaults, which is next.
Now, she got a really nice entry on that, but she was just really arched as she went through the water. Unfortunately, she let her back go, almost it looked like, through the water. She didn't keep any tension, but her entry was actually really nice.
42, so that is a distinct improvement on where she was. Harley Waxman now. Oh, good start, and then that's pretty much failed dive in round 2 on the forward 3.5. Here comes the reverse 2.5.
Well, that's better, obviously, than the catastrophic dive she had before. But it looks like she's just lacking confidence now in herself, in her ability to perform the list.
43.4 is what she gets from that. Shame because the start was good. The with 2.5 worked okay, but it's been a bit of a struggle ever since. Maya Cutty, reverse 2.5 for the Southampton diver.
Start was good, but she threw her head back into the tuck shape, which then just pulled the dive over. She didn't look very comfortable of knowing where she was when she came around that second somersault.
Sheffield's Rochelle Holden, so we've had 13-year-old and 2 14-year-olds back-to-back here. Back 2.5 somersaults for her. First of her 2.8 dives, and she's gradually progressed.
That's a really nice back 2.5 tuck. It's not the highest back 2.5 tuck you're ever going to see, but the tuck shape was nice. She kicks out in exactly the right place. She knows what she's doing on that.
And the biggest mark too, 54.60 for her. She's working her way through. 38.44, now 54 for Rochelle. Now the first 2 big dives for the 14-year-old from Crystal Palace is getting us very excited. She looks like the real deal, even at 14 to me. Back 2.5 somersaults in the pike position for Deshawn Bent Ashmill.
Great entry. She made a really good job out of that, but she really threw herself too quickly off of the board. She did all the right things in order to recover, so that is not a drop by any means. This girl is diving like she's got a serious amount of experience, but she really doesn't. That's really impressive.
Yeah, see why people are getting quite excited about her. That was actually quite a good save, because that could have gone awry, but she whipped those legs around pretty quickly, didn't she, to get them in. And 52.5 is what she gets. Not a highest mark, but it's okay. I think over 50 is not too bad in this competition, certainly in qualification anyway. Millie Fowler, after a 57 previous round, goes for the reverse 2.5 for the city of Sheffield.
You see a great ride on the board. Really nice pike shape. Looked like she knew exactly where she was. She kicked in the perfect place. And then again, we're seeing another one of them banana entries. So just pulling with the chest and the arms at the same time when it's just really no need to do that. You're in exactly the right place. Just a confident come out would have put the dive down.
Well, so looking at maybe a 50. She's got a 39 there as Millie Fowler. Now, Maria Papworth-Burrell's had a decent start, 49 to 55 so far. Back 2.5 somersaults in the pike position.
That's a beautiful dive. Really well executed there from Maria. Really nice. I've got not a lot of criticism for that. Nice pike shape, really nice entry. Maybe just slightly too far back for the diving ball.
Bit of applause from the Plymouth audience here. 60 for her. Fern Hitchin up next with a back 2.5. Well,
that's too early there. The tuck shape was okay. Feet were a little bit flat, which kind of tells me that she wasn't very confident about where she was. And then she kind of proved that when she kicked out way too early. And she dropped that dive very short.
22.4 for Fern Hitchin, so yeah, definitely not what she wanted to get on that dive. Clara Kerr next for Aberdeen with a back 2.5 somersaults.
She cut most of her height off to get into the tuck a little bit too quickly. And then she kind of just let her head onto her chest. When she came round the end of the dive, didn't get her arms through then because of the head position.
44.8 it is for Clara. Now, we haven't quite seen the best yet of Michaela Bute of South Africa. 45 and then 39, another 3.0 dive. 4 of the 5 are. Reverse 2.5 somersaults for the South African.
She managed to squeeze the dive in and actually do pretty well out of what she gave herself there. Hurdle wasn't great, and then she had to kind of throw everything over the shoulders, which is not a really desirable technique because it does kind of correlate with coming close to the board. She wasn't close, but she also wasn't far away. I'd say she's probably a little bit on the line.
Good word, correlate, I like that.
Thank you.
Chris Mears' lexicon working well. Charlotte West in round 3 we'll go with, and you'll see her perform the reverse 2.5 somersaults next. Big readjustment on the board there.
Oh yeah, again, I said it time and time again. When you're doing a reverse action, you do not want your chest dropping over the end of the board, and that's exactly what Charlotte did on that dive. Her chest was facing the water before she had to perform then reverse 2.5 somersaults tucks. Even a 1.5 would have been difficult to execute from that.
Yes, Evie Smith making sure the fulcrum's absolutely where she wants it. Just adjusting the tension of the board for her back 2.5 somersaults. 2.8, which will be performed in the tuck position.
And that dive goes short. That was going short from the start. It just wasn't fast enough. Tuck shape was loose and then kicked out early. It's a bad combo, and she goes on her back.
Yeah, 25.2. It's not good. Evie Webb. So she's got a very strange program. Highs and then quite lows in terms of degree of difficulty. So she has to really make sure the 3s count. And this is one of them, reverse 2.5.
I was nervous on that one for 2 reasons. One, she smiled before she did the dive. I don't know if she's looking at the judges or maybe her coach. Didn't know whether she had her eye on the ball on the dive, and then she came really hot into the end of the board, which we saw a lot in the 1 meter competition, and that was putting us on edge, Bob.
Well, she brought it round and got 49.5 from it. Chloe Johnson, reverse 1.5, only worth 2.0. This very low tariff, lowest of the lot, apart from 1.
Oh, she absolutely nails the entry. That was the best entry, the cleanest entry we've seen so far in the competition. She was dead upright, but only 2.0 degree of difficulty, a 1.5. She's going to want to put another somersault on that, and eventually when she gets a A little bit older, put that then in the pike position.
That was the rippest of rip entries, that, wasn't it?
It was very clean.
42. Callie Eagleston now, reverse 2.5. Bounce on that, wow.
You see Callie there with another somersault. Both from Leeds. Unfortunately, not quite executing that the way that coach would have wanted her to. It was all good in the air. She didn't reach back enough on the end.
The Luton posse are in the building. Just heard them say, come on, Amy. Amy Rollinson being the person that we're talking about. 14 years of age. Finishes with 2.8s. So 2.7 inward, 2.5.
Heads down again. This is quite common on the inward. If you throw the head down, it's really difficult to land upright because you don't really know where you are. The centre of gravity is almost off, or at least your perception of where you're spinning is off. And that's why when you throw the head down on the start, you often find yourself going over vertical.
45.9 was the mark for Amy. Now Kat Torrance with her big dive. 3.1. Forward 3.5. Joint second at the moment.
There's a knee buckle there, which is basically when you put too much energy into the hurdle step. And you can see Catherine looking very nervous as she gets out of the pool there. She knew exactly what went wrong. She put too much energy through the legs into the board, and that caused her knees to kind of tremble. But luckily, she still went up in the air. Sometimes you can literally completely do the opposite and go down, and then you've got no hope of doing your dive.
Yeah, I think she was annoyed more than nervous about that. I think it was kind of, well, those I should have done better, and she should. Emily Bearpark with her forward 3.5 now.
Yeah, that didn't quite come together, just not enough speed in the somersault. The hurdle set was okay, but the arm swing was too early. She needs to wait for that board and really get the rhythm to then get the arms up before she's taken off of the board and then throw to get the perfect timing. The fast somersault.
Real shame. She started well, 51, then a 25 and a 33, so that's kind of eating into her chances of making the top 8 for later. Josie Zillig of Crystal Palace has a back 2.5 in round 3.
Yeah, she took off a lot of her height there on the start, put the knees up too early, and that caused her to land short of vertical.
33.6. Well, she's consistent. 33.6, 33.4, 33.6.
Very consistent.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's not going to be enough, I don't think.
Jasmine Harper with a couple of decent starts. Hasn't hit 50 yet. We'll be wanting to do that on this. Reverse 2.5. It's one of the 3 dives she does in the 3.0 bracket.
Oh my God, and we get another banana there, but this girl lands quite upright, but she's going to get penalised for that. That was really kind of sloppy, the way that she came out of that. She really arched her back and really pulled with her arms because she knew exactly where she went wrong.
You can see her just seeing, as she got to the screen, her dive replayed. So it's a fantastic system because it's kind of timed perfectly. So work out how long it's going to take for the divers to get to the wall, and then they see it. Literally second after they arrive, which is terrific.
Good way to criticise yourself or see when you've done it right.
Grace Reed, back 2.5 in round 3.
Grace, it's not fully coming together for her this morning, but that isn't really a problem. She's gonna, I don't want to jinx her, but she should be, you know, making this final with ease. And she's not diving to the best of her ability, but she might just be saving it in the tank for later.
54, so 16 and 51 and a 54 for Grace. Now Andrea Spendolini-Siriex of Crystal Palace with a back 2.5 somersault. She's 8th at the moment, so she's right on the cusp of qualification with 2 more rounds after this.
Yeah, just too early there. too early and the legs dropped as well, which never helps. If you're going to kick that early, you've got to pull it round and do your best to get that on your head, and she just kind of let it drop into the water.
Yeah, it's going to knock her back a bit in terms of her position in the standings. 33.6. Now here's Scarlett Mew-Jensen, who is looking to try and get back in front here. She is the leader after round 2. Back 2.5 somersaults.
And there's the drop. Really good first 2 rounds there from Scarlett, and I was really hoping that she was going to carry that through and really threaten the top girls for a medal position. Obviously, it's not the final yet, it's just the prelim, but that's a big drop for a prelim.
Yeah, 61-65, first 2 rounds, 22.5 in round 3. That's knocked her back sufficiently that she's only just going to be in the top 8 potentially here. We'll find out at the end of this round as we finish off the round with Kaylee Sinclair, Plymouth diving. Inward 2.5 for the 20-year-old.
Oh, she nailed the dive. Really nice entry there. Not as tight as I'd like in the tuck shape, but the entry was really on point.
Well, I think she's going to move up. She has moved up into 6th place, so just a little bit of wriggle room for her. She moves up a couple of places and gets herself into qualification position for later on today. So we'll go around the 24 again for round 4. Remember, in the women's 5 rounds, so penultimate round here for Tilly Brown's inward 2.5.
Another good inward 2.5 there, not quite as good as the previous one we just saw. Entry was a little bit more splashy, but the tuck shape was better than the last one actually. But I think if you're spinning that fast, you want to get a little pike out just to take a look at the dive before you enter the water.
Holly Waxman up next for City of Leeds. 23rd at the moment, so these things happen very quickly for her. She's got 3.0, so they could. She's not going to be back later. Back 2.5 somersaults for Holly.
A little bit too far back there to perform that dive. Holly making a few mistakes in this prelim that I don't think she can come back from. She is rank 11 at the moment, but I'm not sure that she's got enough in the tank to be able to make this final.
No, we've still got another 23 and with a 22 to go yet, so she's not going to hold that position for very long. Maya Kuti now for Southampton Diving Academy, 14 years of age, so Lindsay Fraser and the team bringing through some good youngsters. Back 2.5 here.
Now that was short, unfortunately. She gave herself the opportunity on the start. She got it spinning, but the kick was too early, and she just didn't pull the dive round. She has had a couple of good dives, but that's not a good one there.
Well, it's going to be very tight for the top 8, we know that. And Rochelle Holden is right there. She's in 9th place. Reverse 2.5 now for the Sheffield diver.
Straight off the board, almost before the whistle. You want to be careful of that, because if you do that internationally, they may actually fail the dive or make you do it again. And if you do a really good dive, that could be quite frustrating. But on this occasion, she seems to come out of it pretty unscathed.
Yeah, 49. So she's starting to get moving with a 54 last round, 49 this round. So looking right, looking good. Deshan Ben Ashmill of Crystal Palace. Reverse 2.5. Currently in 4th place.
Now again, she's got the dive on her head with a good entry, but I think she really wants to progress getting this dive into the pike position. So I think she should be focusing on trying to extend the hips a little bit more into the tuck shape, because that's really a key component to get the dive moving in the pike position.
Well, so weakest one in terms of score so far, 46.2. But shouldn't have done too much damage with that. Could still be on course for a top 8 place going into the last round. Now, Maria Barrow will be next after Millie Fowler with a forward 3.5 somersaults. This is her big dive, so 3.1. So Millie is in 7th. Can underline that, maybe improve upon it with this.
Yeah, the strength was good. It was a little bit noisy on the board. I think she probably flattened her feet before she hit the end of the board in the push. In the air was all good, and through the water was pretty nice as well.
Yeah, 60 plus, 60.45 for Millie, so yeah, that does kind of underline where she is and what she might be potentially able to do later. For City of Sheffield, now Maria Papworth-Burrell of Dive London, our current leader.
Well, she whipped that off of the board very aggressively. No control into the pike shape whatsoever. She was definitely a backseat driver there on that dive.
Yeah, not in control of that, sadly, but 3 good rounds, 1 not quite so good round. Shouldn't have too much of an adverse effect on her progression for later, but she may well relinquish the lead after that. Fern Hitchin of City of Sheffield, back in 20th at the moment. Reverse 2.5 somersaults for the 21-year-old.
She waited for the board really well there with the arms. It's a really nice technique. She gets it up in the air. The tuck shape, again, a little bit flat-footed because it'll be a little bit more neat and tidy in the air, and then she kicks in the right place and gets a finish on it.
54.6, so best return so far for her. Clara Kerr of Aberdeen, forward 2.5. This one in the pike position.
Now you can see there, not using the board the same as we saw Fern use the board. Fern really weighted her arms, and Clara then rushing her arms a little bit, but low degree of difficulty. She still comes out pretty well.
And we keep waiting for this young lady to make a bit of a move and show us what she's really capable of. At the moment, she's slightly down on her scores, considering the DD she has. This is her lowest degree of difficulty. It's the forward 3.5 in the tuck position, worth 2.8.
Now she doesn't use this dive in the pike position, and she overcooks this one. That suggests that she's probably got enough power to execute the 3.5 piked. She's chosen to do it tucked in a hope that she can get more execution marks on it, but that's not happened in this prelim.
No, she's struggling to make that top 8. She's at the moment not looking likely unless she could really nail her inward 2.5 at the end. I think top 8 might be beyond her. Charlotte West of Albatross, inward 2.5 for the 18-year-old.
That's more like it from Charlotte. We see there, she gets a little bit caught up in the tuck shape, but she knows where she is. She's confident on the come out, and she brings the judges around a little bit towards the end, but I think they're just going to penalise her for not jumping as high as some of the other girls, and a little bit not very neat in the tuck shape.
44.55, best mark she's received so far from the judges. Evie Smith of Crystal Palace, good start. Hasn't been able to capitalise on it since. Reverse 2.5 in round 4.
Oh, she sneaks it in, but she makes it hard for herself. She skips straight out of the board, instantly into the tuck shape. And I think she panics right until the moment she hits the water, and then she goes, thank God I landed upright.
There's quite a few men in the 3 metre who do that kind of little what I call dancing step on the board, and they get it done, but to me aesthetically I don't like it. It looks like your feet aren't actually in control when you're doing that, but people pull it around and they get very good dives from it. Evie Webb with the forward 2.5. Ooh, where's she going?
She's really far out on the diving board there, no control, and that went wrong pretty much from the first second. She goes over the end of the board like we were seeing a lot in the women's 1 metre, and a couple of men in the 1 metre and the 3 metre. She goes over the end. Impossible to do anything about that. I
suppose there's no right or wrong way in terms of your preparation for your hurdle step and stuff, but sometimes I just think that kind of that dancey little bouncy thing doesn't do a lot for me, but never mind. Chloe Johnson's up next, forward 2.5.
That's a good dive. It's nice and clean. A little bit short. Now, I think, Bob, you're referring to the jump hurdle step, which is very common in women's diving. And there's kind of a right way and a wrong way to do the hurdle step. When it's executed well, it looks quite aesthetically pleasing sometimes, but it's quite precarious. And sometimes, you know, you're going to get some arm flappage and a little bit of readjusting in the air, and then I think as a judge...
So much can go wrong, though.
So much can go wrong, and they're going to mark down as well for any flapping in the air that you do.
Kelly Eagleston's inward 2.5, that was pretty decent.
That was a nice dive. She dropped her head a little bit through the water, which is why she's not got great execution marks, but the power out of the board, considering her height and her weight, was really powerful.
Amy Rollinson with the reverse 2.5 for round 4. She's 14th at the moment. It's quite concertinaed between about 8 and 16, you know, there's not much between them.
We got another one.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Impossible. Reverse 2.5 somersaults. Chest towards the water. Forward out of the board. A little bit open in the tuck shape. Impossible. You can't do a reverse 2.5.
Now, Catherine Torrance, I think it's fair to say she had one good dive this morning by her standards, which was round 2. The forward 2.5 with one twist. Either side, the inward 2.5 off. The forward 3.5 certainly not quite as she would have wished. So she's got a couple more to get herself back in the groove. Maybe this is the one to do it. Reverse 2.5 somersaults for Catherine in the pike position.
Mighty strong. Amazing board work. She propels herself straight up into the air. Highest probably we've seen today. Into the pike. That's why one judge is giving that an 8. Now in the final, that could well go 8s, but it is a prelim, and judges tend to just mark down slightly in the prelims to leave the guys a little bit of room to step up for the final.
Biggest mark we've seen in the morning so far, though, 66 for Catherine Torrance. That will help a great deal. Not that there's any danger of her not making the final, but she might make the final as the leading contender. Emily Bearpark now with a back 2.5.
Now that was just a little bit too slow there from Emily. Slow into the tuck shape and not a big jump. Just not going to make it as well if you kick early.
On to Josie Zillig of Crystal Palace. So it was 33, 33, 33 so far. A long playing record, if you remember those things. Oh, they're making a comeback, aren't they? Josie with a reverse 2.5.
That's a really nice finish. It's a shame that she was a little bit up and down. Not close, but on the line. Rip entry was there, was collected, but the legs were apart as she pulled round to the entry.
But best mark by quite some way today, 50.40 for her. As Yasmin Harper, who is the last qualifier at the moment in 8th place. She's got a lower tariff dive here and then a bigger one at the end. Forward 3.5. This one will be conducted in the tuck position.
She's gone forward there and she's dropped her head. Again, like I was talking about, some of the girls on the inwards, well, in fact, anyone on inwards, when you drop your head, it's almost impossible to come back from and land upright. And she has felt victim to that. Heads down and she's gone straight over.
That last qualifying position, in fact, the last 2 qualifying positions are incredibly tight. There will be maybe some changes around in the last round here. 4, 3.5, 3.1 for Grace Reed.
Grace actually going a little bit forwards on this dive. Don't see her make that mistake very often. She's over the end of the board and then she shoots forward a little bit. It's not a big mistake. 58.9 still not quite hitting the 60 region, but it's not a drop. But it's not normal to see Grace go that far out on the forward 3.5.
Yeah, just tucked in behind Catherine Torrance at the moment in terms of the top of the leaderboard. Andrea Spendolini-Siriex of Crystal Palace now with her reverse 2.5.
That's a shame, you know, because she did everything right there. The hurdle step was really, really nice, really smooth, into the tuck shape, almost perfect technique, off the board into the tuck shape. Nice arch. And then, unfortunately, she just pulled on the end instead of just committing and being confident on the out.
Now, here's that early leader. Great first 2 rounds, and then that back 2.5, which went wrong. So hopefully that's not still in the memory bank. She's got rid of it now for the reverse 2.5. Here's Scarlett Mew Jensen.
It's not a good start. It's not a good start. On the end of the board, she's over the end. A lot of the girls get nervous about the reverse 2.5 pike. It's a hard dive. You've got to get it right technically on the board to get it right in the air, and she didn't give herself the opportunity there.
Yeah, slipping down the standings a bit now, but should still, on the basis of the first 2 rounds, have enough to keep her in there. Kaylee Sinclair now to finish off the 4th round, 6th place. Reverse 2.5.
Yeah, too far back from the end of the board. Again, with this reverse, you don't want to be over the end, but you don't also want to be that far back on the board because it's really hard to make it go forwards. And she fell victim to that. Slow in the tuck shape and short of vertical.
36.4. Right, let's have a look and see who is where as we enter final round. So Catherine Torrance has gone to the top. Grace Reed just tucked in behind. Ria Papworth-Burrell third. Millie Fowler. All those on the front page there will make it through if they stay in that position. 183 was 8th, so 6 points behind Yasmin Harper. Andrea Spendler-Siriex is in 10th, so they're in range, as is Clara Kerr. In fact, there's quite a few there, all bunched together, who, provided they could execute their dives well, could get in the top 8. So top 8 is not cut and dried. I'd say the top 2 or 3 probably are, but a bit further down the pecking order, not so. Tilly Brown's last dive of the competition is her lowest tariff dive, 2.1 for the 13-year-old on the forward 1.5 one twist. As we mentioned, this is really a 1 meter dive.
She didn't get her arms through on the start there. She really cheated her arms, rushed into the twist, and they will mark her down for that.
That's a finishing score, 176.7. She will have been hoping for better. She had a couple of low scores to start with. 30 out of 21 did not help her cause. Holly Waxman for City of Leeds. Yeah, all came down to that failed dive in round 2, really. Forward 2.5 one twist. And over she goes.
Yeah, it's just letting it get to her now. The hurdle set was fine. It wasn't the best, but no need to do that. She held on for way too long in the pike position before she came out into the twist. And that is not a nice feeling on that dive. A rushed twist, too late. And that's almost when you can lose your way and end up looking at the ceiling and wondering what's happened and you've hit the water on your back. She luckily didn't do that.
Yeah, 2 rounds she won't want to look back with any fondness on. A 5.6 round 2, 13.5 round 5. Maya Kuti, reverse 1.5 with 1.5 twists.
And that went wrong again from the hurdle step there. She rushed her arms through. She skipped forwards. That cut off all of her rotation. And then she just struggled to make the dive from there on in.
Right, first of our top 8 divers at the moment. Those who are just thinking about the potential of 5 more dives later on, but still 1 more to perform for Richelle Holden of City of Sheffield. It's a low tariff dive compared to some of the others. 2.7, inward 2.5.
Oh, I've never seen that before on an inward 2.5 tuck. A knee buckle. She pushes into the board and she gets nothing back. Literally no return out of the board from that. All of the power she put in, and then her legs buckle, and then impossible to make the dive off that.
She may have just missed out on her final spot too. There wasn't an awful lot of a gap between her and 9th. I fear for Richelle for coming back, but shouldn't be a problem for this young lady. 14 years of age. Deshawn Bent Ashmill. A couple of 50s in the program so far. Here's another potential one. Forward 2.5 with 1 twist.
That's a shame, you know, because I saw her 3 times in a row yesterday do that dive for 7.5, maybe even 8. It was really nicely executed, and I congratulated her afterwards and said that I was really impressed with it. She's not shown that in this prelim there. Now, hopefully she still makes the final, because I'd like to see what she can pull out.
I think 2:49 probably will be just about enough to get through, but we'll see. Millie Fowler will be hoping that she is in that last 8. Every reason to suspect she might be after that 60.4 on the forward 3.5. Back 2.5 to finish. She can get probably 50 plus. She should be there with the other 7. She really wanted that, didn't she?
She wanted it. She gave it everything on the start. Nice into the pike shape. Came out too early and then didn't pull enough. 4.5 from every judge. They are in agreement.
Oh, it's going to be very tight. 40, I did say 50 would nail it. 40 is going to be a little bit uncomfortable. She's going to have a long wait to see whether she makes it or not. Now, Maria Papworth-Barol has had a decent progression there. 49, 55, 60, 40 comes the forward 2.5 with 1 twist.
Now she's perfectly on the end, almost a little bit too perfectly on the end. Looked like then she probably panicked a little bit. Maybe it's not normal for her getting that good a start, and then I think she tried to rush the twist and greet the water, and then she over twisted on the entry. Not a lot, but it was noticeable.
That 2:49 for Deshawn Ben Ashmill is looking very good. Very good. She's 8 points clear of everybody else now, so I think we can probably enter her in for the final later. Fern Hitchin with a forward 2.5 to finish.
That's a nice finish there from Fern. Not as good on the hurdle step as the round before. 6.5s. Not a bad score.
Yeah, with some divers faltering though. It's probably, no, it's not quite enough. She was just too far adrift, but there's going to be some in the 9 to 12 bracket who fancy their chances now of making it through, because there's been a couple of less than impressive dives from those who are in the top 8. Clara Kerr is 11th. Now she's one of those. Inward 2.5. All goes wrong.
It goes wrong. The head's down on the start, like I was saying earlier. On the front and inwards, that's not a good idea. As soon as you throw the head down, your perception of where you are in your somersault is warped. And she goes over.
Well, we haven't had anybody, apart from Deshawn Ben Ashmill, anywhere near 50 in this round. She's the only one who got 49.5. Everybody else is in the 20s and 30s. It's proven to be a really tough round. So now Michaela Butet of South Africa with an inward 2.5. Well, she really nails it. Who knows, but it's unlikely.
That's a really nice dive. She's a little bit low on the water, but she dealt with it well. She pike saves through the water, and that causes her to go over. But the pike shape in the air was really, really nice. And the way she came out of it, if she'd have had more height, she could have got a really good score on that.
Yeah, 2:13.30 will not be enough to get her through to the final. Charlotte West of Albatross. Her best dive came in round 4. Let's see if she can improve upon that. It's a lower tariff dive, though. It's a back 1.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists.
And the head position was a little bit back in the twist. That's not something that I ever liked when I was doing my twist, but she's obviously comfortable with that. Confident finish.
Evie Smith of Crystal Palace, great start. And not a bad 4th round either. In between, though, not the mark she would have wanted. So she's got a low tariff dive to finish with, 2.4 again. Same dive we saw from Charlotte West. She'll do the back 1.5 with 1.5 twists. Again,
confident in the twist. Not quite coming together on the end of that dive. loses a lot of tension, so she goes through the water a little bit wobbly, doesn't get a great entry on the finish.
So her final mark, 192.60 for Evie Smith. Evie Webb now. Great support from the Sheffield contingent, but it's not going to get us through to the final, I'm afraid. Forward 2.5 with one twist. Her last round, 28.8, really did for her chances of progression.
Now again, we're seeing another of these divers rushing off the board on this dive, coming out too late for the twist, and then just cruising the dive over. That's really not a nice feeling on a twisting forward dive.
Chloe Johnson, 13-year-old from City of Leeds. Inward 2.5 to finish for her. 2.7 is her biggest tariff dive.
Almost there, a little bit short, apprehensive on the come out, kicks out too early, but the tuck shape was nice.
40.50, so she does get over 200, 205. Now Callie Eagleston, 12th place. That's 2.5 though. If she had a higher tariff, perhaps she could make that top 8. I think it's going to be asking too much on a forward 1.5 or 2 twist, but she could make up a couple of places. Toes at the end though. She got that round very well, considering where her toes were.
Right on the end of the board there. Very close to being unrecoverable. Nice dive though. Goes straight up in the air. 2 twists was easy and puts an end on it.
45, not a bad mark in this round, got to say. Looking through, there's not too many people pushing 50. Amy Rollinson of Luton was going along quite nicely actually, first 3 rounds, and then that 21 last round really gave her a bit of a smack in the face. Back 2.5 somersaults.
Now the height was good, but unfortunately you've got to find that balance between getting the height out of the board to impress the judges and actually getting the speed you need to complete the dive itself, and unfortunately she didn't get the latter.
Just wondering what Catherine Torrance thinks about her program this morning, because every other dive has been quite good. Second round dive good, 4th round dive good, in between times not quite what we normally expect from her really. First round, 3rd round, sub 50. So if that pattern continues, this will be another below 50 dive, but I think she likes this one. It's one of her favourite dives. Back 2.5.
Yeah, you're right, Bob. Really nice. She sunk that down. Good off the start. Nice reach, nice pike shape, confident end, and confident through the water. 63.
Yeah, 289 was a decent total. She'll want to go much higher than that later on today, but that's a nice, comfortable qualification for later on today. 5 more dives to come for her. Now, Emily. 2.1 is not going to get it done in terms of moving up much, but forward 1.5, 1 twist.
Yeah, again, we're seeing a 1 meter dive there from Emily, really. But she's executed it quite nicely. Drifted slightly over, but the distance was good. The twist was nice and the form was better.
So it's like a problem with an input on the judges' keypads, but we've got it together now. 37.80 for Emily. Josie Zillig had a terrific 4th round, reverse 2.5. Let's see if she can finish it off with a reverse 1.5 with 1.5 twist. Josie Zillig of Crystal Palace.
That's just too quick there into the twist, off of the board. She rushed it, and that meant she was a bit unbalanced coming into the entry position, and she wasn't able to get her hands for the finish.
So 191 finish for her. Yasmin Harper, 9th place. She has got a really good chance here making the final, because there's so many people around her faltering.
She's right on that cusp, but as you said, we've had Pretty tough round for some of these divers.
I reckon if she could get close to nailing this, the back 2.5 will get her into the top 8.
Oh, it's good, but she was a bit archy, and I'm not sure what the judges are going to make of that. It's quite exciting, actually. 54, no, I don't think that's going to be enough, but it might, because actually we've had quite a lot of drops.
Yeah, I think it could be. It's very tight, though, because, well, it's so tight. What does she get in the end? Yeah, she...
Because we've got Grace.
Grace has still got to go. Scarlett Mew Jensen to go. And Kaylee Sinclair as well. Here's Grace. She's going to make it through after this.
There she goes. Really nice dive. Again, Grace traveling a little bit further forward than I'm used to seeing her go on a dive, but doesn't really hold her back. She still gets 63 and 286 just behind Catherine.
Yeah, no problem with qualification for those two as expected. Now, again, Andrea with a 3.0 she could get there with a forward 2.5, 1 twist. All down to this as to whether she makes the top 8. She's got a chance. Got a chance.
Almost got the dive right, but she landed on her shoulders, and I think that's going to be 5s, and it is. 4.5, 5. She gets 45 points for the dive, 217
I think she's going to finish 9th, unfortunately, from her point of view.
I think she is.
Scarlett Mew Jensen, though, just to underline her position, needs to have that 1 drop dive, or partially drop dive in round 3, but otherwise she's been okay. Forward 2.5 with 1 twist. Needs to make sure no mistake here. And she'll be back for 5 more later today.
Yeah, confident dive there from Scarlett. Really proving that she may have made mistakes, but she can finish well. 60 points. A little bit wayward on the twist position coming out into the repipe, but she saved it and she lands upright.
Well, the word pressure is used in sport, I think overly used at times, but you look at the board and you see you're in 8th position. So you know that there are other divers just closing in on you, and you have to finish it off with a back 1.5, 2.5 twist. Good luck, Kaylee Sinclair.
I think if she does an average dive, she should replace Yasmin Harper for 7th place. And it's a little bit twisted going through the water there. I don't know if they're going to penalise for that. She was also a bit short of vertical.
Oh, she just claimed the last position.
Goes into 8.
Oh. Just claimed the last position with that dive by 8 points in the end. So it wasn't as tight as maybe it could have been, but we have our top 8, and these are they. These are the ones who will be going through to the final later today. Catherine Torrance, Grace Reed, Scarlett Mew Jensen, Toshan Bent Ashman in 4th, Millie Fowler, Maria Papworth, Burrell, Yasmin Harper and Kaylee Sinclair. So local support she'll get, I'm sure. A lot of predominance from that. In 8th place, missing out in 9th, Andrea Spendolini, Siriex, Rochelle Holden and Michaela Buta, the South African diver, in 11th place with Callie Eagleston in 12th. There's the rest of those who didn't quite make it on that page. Chloe Johnson amongst them, Maya Kuti and Clara Kerr. So interesting 3-meter final to come later on today. It does again look like it probably will be Torrance and Reed, but you never know.
No, you never know. If you're in the final, you've got a chance.
And we'll see how Sian Bent Ashmill does as well when she returns for another go later on today. So, coming up, we will have the men's platform. Men's platform preliminary up next, and we will have 24 go to start in that. Of course, the likes of Tom Daly and Matty Lee involved in that. So join us a little bit later on for the prelims of the men's platform. Chris and myself, Bob Ballard. Goodbye for now.
The latest in tech suit innovation. Frictionless fiber construction. Surface lift technology. Endo compression cage. Seamless exo shell. Tier Benzo. Battleborn.
And welcome back to the Plymouth Life Centre in Devon. We are prepared, and hopefully all of the divers, 24 of them, are prepared for the men's platform preliminaries. Top 8 again go through. There are a couple of overseas divers involved, so if they get in the top 8, then that will be extended further down to 10 maybe. But we'll see the likes of Matty Lee. He'll go number 3. Tom Daly will go number 10. Matthew Dixon, who did so well last year on the 10 meter, goes 14. And there's plenty of new talent coming through. We mentioned it earlier on in our preview. 6 13-year-olds will go in this one. Right, on the basis of what we saw, can we extrapolate anything, Chris Mears, from what we saw from the Synchro last night, or was it a completely different event?
It is a different event, but they're doing similar dives. The guys that competed yesterday, they should have had a bit of time to get used to diving back on up on the 10 meter board again. Hopefully we'll see Noah pull out the right amount of twists today on his dive, as yesterday he got penalised for that, and they were in second place, I believe, but then they moved down the field because he did the wrong amount of twists, so the dive was then classed as a fail. But it is the first competition they will have done this year, so you know, no judgment there. Just wiping the cobwebs off, getting used to competing again, getting that routine in place. And it's always tough when you're coming back off a pre-season, where sometimes that is a place and time where you pick up injuries. Dealing with that and managing that and then competing is sometimes difficult, but it does tend to set you up for the year. All
the big divers will do the forward 4.5 Tom Daly is doing it. Matty Lee will do it at the end of his program. There's the lineup of the divers for you. Not Brendan Foster, that's not Miss Brendan, it is Brandon Foster of Southampton will go first. Can't imagine Brendan Foster up on the board, to be honest. Ben Cutmore 2, Matty Lee will go 3, so that's your top 8. We've got a couple of overseas divers. Got the Romanian Constantin Popovici will be at number 5. We have a Danish diver further down the list as well. Just to refresh that for 9 onwards, because you'll see a certain Tom Daly going number 10. Matt Dixon goes number 14, so watch out for him. See what kind of form he's in. He's the local lad from Plymouth. There's your Danish diver. Martin Christiansen is 17. Aidan Heslop, another of the local divers, who will go 21. Noah Williams, who was in the synchro we talked about, goes 22. And we've got at the end, even though he's got a Polish name, he is a home-based diver, Konrad Lewandowski of the city of Sheffield. There you go, that's 24. 6 rounds of dives, of course, and unlike the synchro where we have the 2.0s, no such worries in terms of low tariffs here, though there is a low tariff for Brandon Foster. He's going to go for a arm stand somersault 1.9, as some of the younger divers will go off the 7.5. In fact, Josh Freeman goes off the 5 as well on his final dive, but I think everybody else is pretty much on the 7.5 or 10. And we will start with the 17-year-old from Southampton, Brandon Foster. Doesn't until the end get up to the dizzy heights of 3+, 3.3 on the final dive. Yes, he has a 1.9 tucked in lane in round 4, but reverse 2.5 somersaults, 2.8 to start with for Brandon Foster.
Oh, that's a bad start there from Brandon. He span quite slow and then he pike kicked out of the dive, and look, he wants to stay underwater. He really didn't want to come up there. Only 9.8. What happened on that dive? I don't know what he was doing there, coming out that early. Really had no business doing that.
Yeah, that's smart. That's not clever for a start there for Brandon. Now on to Ben Cutmore, who we saw in the synchro yesterday. Reverse 2.5 somersaults for Ben. Actually, Lucas is not in the program today, is he?
Lucas not competing in the 10m platform. And that was a better reverse 2.5 somersaults tucked there from Ben Cutmore.
Yeah, 54.6. Now we were talking about yesterday, or I've mentioned this a few times, how few divers on the world circuit start with an arm stand. Well, we've got a few actually in this one. We've got a couple very closely matched in terms of start position here. Matty Lee is going to go for an arm stand to start off with.
And
Thinking behind that.
Interesting actually to start on an arm stand, but actually for Matty it tends to be quite a steady dive for him. Also, just correcting us from what I just said about Lucas, he is actually up on the board.
Oh, it's 4. Yes, I
didn't quite manage to see him on the start list there, but which I was quite confused about, as he is a platform diver. And that's consistent there from Matty, but it is short. He can do the dive better, but it's not a big drop. He takes the water down with him. Just 6.5. It's not really what he would have wanted, how he would have wanted to start his competition, but it's steady and it's not a big drop.
Top 8, as we mentioned, go through, and additions if any of those top 8 places taken by overseas divers. Here is the mystery man, or the missing man we thought, but we found him. He's on our list, and there he is with his list. Lucas Thompson of Edinburgh, opening up with a back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists.
Yeah, I think he feels more up for this competition. He has competed in so many events this weekend, hardly been able to keep up with it. And he couldn't keep up with it either. In the first half of his events, he really didn't have a good time in the springboard events. And then a little bit better yesterday when he went into the men's platform synchro. And
He's got
now
the right trunks on today.
He does. He has the right trunks on today. No malfunctions or anything going on there. And a much better dive as well to start off his list.
So another arm stand to come, and in fact, Matty Dixon's going to do it. Owen Harrison's going to do it. There's quite a few. In fact, Martin Christiansen's going to do it as well. So that bangs out my theory from yesterday that very few people do it, because quite a few here are doing it. Konstantin Popovici of Romania. This has got a 1.5 twists added to the arm stand.
Now that's a nice dive. The handstand could have been held for a little bit longer to prove that he had more stability over the dive. He hasn't been marked down for that. I think he did hold it long enough, but sometimes the divers like to prove very clearly that they are in control.
72 for that, 72 for Lucas. Joint leaders at the moment. Milo French of Southampton. Hopefully he doesn't have the same start that Brandon Foster, his teammate, had. Same dive, reverse 2.5.
Yeah, he got that spinning really quickly. And unfortunately, that carried through into his entry. And he drifted that over, and he really struggled to stop the dive. But very brave start there.
49. Remember, they have to go through all the categories. Reverse, back, forward, arm stand, all have to be performed. And inward, of course. So you have to show all the different things. You can't check out on any of them. All the different forward, back, arm stand, inwards, all have to be done. Comes Josh Freeman from Plymouth.
That was a nice entry. Just opting to use the 7-meter platform and not the 10-meter. Good entry. 48 points.
Yeah, that's the whole range. Actually, there's 3 on the 7.5, 2 on the 10, and 1 on the 5. Does Josh can use all the boards, doesn't get charged any extra. Robbie Lee, Southampton, lots of Southampton representatives in this competition, as there are Dive London and Sheffield as well. Reverse 2.5.
Doesn't leave much time there. The whistle goes, and he's literally doing his arm swing as soon as the whistle has been blown. And I like to see a little bit more patience on the board.
Well, he's 13, and when you were 13, you had no patience at all.
Absolutely none. I had absolutely no chill.
Not much has changed in that respect, has it?
Maybe I've got older and wiser, I'll say. Possibly.
We'll be the judge of that. Plymouth Diving's Connor West next.
Again using the 7-meter board. And the pike shape was a little bit open. The head was down, drifted over of vertical, slightly on the finish.
46.80 is what he picks up. This man should get a bit of a good response, you'd think. Well, you'd hope so. Thomas Stadium. Just doesn't sound right, does it?
Yeah, Thomas.
Well, of course, this facility was built as he was moving to London, wasn't it? Because he would have had most of his career at the old Plymouth diving facility.
He did spend most of it in the old pool. He then made a transition into this pool. It was quite brief before he moved into the London programme, into the lovely Stratford pool.
But he knows these boards very well, so shouldn't be a worry. Reverse 3.5 for Tom. First individual dive in the British for 4 years.
Yeah, that's a pretty good start from Tom. You see a slight twist as he comes out of the somersault and into the straight position to greet the water. But you see a judge getting a bit hasty there with the old 10.
Well, we've got some 9s.
That's lovely to see.
Yeah, I got some 9s.
The judges going with Tom Daly on that one, or Thomas Daly, should I say now.
No, I think it's always been Thomas Daly on the entry forms, but never called that in commentary. But yeah, maybe Tom is the only diver in this country who, maybe Jack gets to a certain extent, who has the Chinese phenomenon where he'll get marked up because of who he is, potentially.
Yeah, that can happen. When the judges see someone on the board they know, they're more likely to go with them. But also, sometimes more likely to penalise them when they go wrong.
Harrison Hartley, not the start he was looking for City of Sheffield, with his forward 3.5. 42 for Harrison. Matthew Dixon coming up shortly, by the way, from Plymouth Diving. Not seen that much of Matthew in recent times. He's been doing his bit down here, but on the international scene we haven't seen much of him. Ewan McCabe, also Plymouth Diving. Reverse 2.5 somersaults for him to start. Another 13-year-old, Harrison Hartley 13, and Ewan McCabe 13 as well.
That was a nice entry there from Ewan. Kicks out nice and solid, gets his hands on the water. He does drift over, but he manages to keep the water down, which is quite impressive.
58.8 for Ewan McCabe. Now we'll shift to your former club, City of Leeds, and Joe Stocking, who obviously feels comfortable with his arm stand, just doing one somersault on this, which is a dive I don't recall having seen before, to be honest.
Now, this dive is quite common in junior competitions. It's a required dive, normally known as. He absolutely nails it. That was pretty perfect, actually, as far as an arm stand somersault goes, but he probably won't get extremely high marks on it because it is a required dive and this is considered an optional competition.
40.85 is what he gets, but as well now, it's the home fans making sure that Matthew Dixon gets his support. He's going to go with an arm stand, and it's a big one too. It's a higher tariff than the others, 3.3. Arm stand back, triple somersault, so a lot of component parts to work in this. Everybody else going for 3.2 arm stands, I think. Apart from Noah Williams going for 3.6.
Yeah, Matthew Dixon is really consistent. I really like watching him dive because I don't really feel nervous because I know that he's going to land there or thereabouts, and he proves time and time again that he is comfortable up on the 10-metre platform.
Nicely done, good start. So, a bit like London buses, you get one arm stand, you get another one straight away. Is there an Harrison's version of it for Sheffield? Slightly different from what we've seen. It's a nice thing with arm stands, you get a variety. This one's got a double somersault and 1.5 twists. I think that's in commentary yesterday. It's outside arm stands that give me the heebie-jeebies. Indoors, not quite so much, but...
Yeah, it's hard enough doing an arm stand dive anyway, let alone when you have to deal with the wind and the sun in your eyes. And possibly the rain. Now, a little bit sideways on the entry. I wonder if he faltered a little bit in his arm stand. Also, when he flicked off the board, his legs came apart just slightly. Not sure if you will have noticed that at home, but you could just see slightly legs coming apart as he goes into the twist.
56 is what he gets. Jack Jefford keeps his arm stand to the end, and it will be the one we saw previously, the arm stand somersault he'll do off 10-metre board. He has one dive off the 7.5-metre board in round 3, but we'll start on the 10. Going to go with a forward 3.5, the Crystal Palace youngster.
That's a nice dive. A little bit, maybe a little bit far away from the diving board. The pike shape's nice. The entry's good, but not jumping upright enough on the start, washing over slightly on the entry.
60 is solid though. It's a decent start on the 3.0 for Jack Jefford. Now, from Denmark, who don't produce that many divers, it must be said.
They don't. They've had a few in the past. I've competed against a few. But it is quite unusual to see.
Martin Christiansen will go in the David Budaya style with a arm stand in round 1.
He recovered that well. As he was in the arm stand, he drifted a little bit too far off of the board before he made the legs bend into the flick. And he flicks away from the board, which then is really closely recognised to being very out of control. But he managed to gain some control into the finish of the dive.
Carl Cathari of Dive London will open up with an inward 3.5. He's one of them in the lineup who's doing the forward 4.5. That comes in round 5 for him.
What a great entry there from Kyle. Really, really nice. That's going to score pretty high. And there we see the 9s from the judges. Little 7.5, little rogue 7.5 in there. The 9.5s will count.
86.4. Now, you can say that's the 3.2. Tom Davis is the 3.4, so not quite on a par, but only 5 points behind him. Very good start from the 20-year-old from London. Joseph Ashley up next for the City of Sheffield. Starts on the 7.5 board. 3 of his dives coming on there. Back 1.5 with 1.5 twists. 2.4.
Twist was a little bit slow, but it was in control. And as he came round and repiked, unfortunately his head was down just a little bit and the dive drifted over of vertical.
40.804. Joe Patchley. And now Hugo Thomas. Having said we don't see this very often, we're going to see it 3 times in this program at least. In fact, 4 times, I think. Hugo Thomas will do the arm stand somersault from the 7.5 meter platform. Not under control yet. No, still not. I don't think.
He never really showed control in that handstand. You're right there, Bob. He kicked up really fast, and it's much nicer to see a slow kick up into a handstand and showing real control before leaving the board.
Problem is at that age, he's 13, and we'll see some other 13 years. It's quite hard because you're putting a lot of pressure on those not really developed wrists, aren't you?
Yeah, and that is a big problem within diving. There's been a lot of research done into the development in young kids. I was part of that when I was growing up. I had wrist problems, and I barely even touched the 10-meter board. So if you're up there all the time, I can imagine it's quite painful.
Reverse 3.5 for Plymouth's Aidan Haslam. As I mentioned, quite a lot of Plymouth divers in this. Here's another one.
That's a nice dive. That's really nice. He got it spinning. Nice jump out of the board. Nice tuck shape. He comes out very confidently, reaches his arms back and takes most of the water down with him.
76.50. Good opening gambit from Aidan Haslam. Now, Noah, make sure you get your somersaults right today and your twists right today, because we don't want any DDs, any disqualifications. That's DQs rather than DDs. In with 3.5. Arm stand in 2. It's got 2 twisting dives, which are round 2 and round 6.
There you go, Noah. First round, in with 3.5 somersaults in a tuck position. 72 points. That's a nice steady start for him. That's really what I wanted him to do this morning. I didn't want him to do anything too spectacular, especially after that little mistake yesterday. It's good to see him starting confidently.
Yeah, 72. Nice solid opening on a 3.2 for Noah. Now Alfie Brown of Plymouth. He'll go. Interestingly, he does all 5 dives on the 10-meter board and does 1 from the 5.
That is interesting, actually.
Climbs down to the 5 on his back 2.5. And he does well with 1.5 twists and does it from the 10. I don't get that, to be honest to you.
Oh, he's absolutely drilled that dive. I thought when he took off, he's just way too slow. And then sneaks it round and lands perfectly upright and takes all the water down with him.
Why would he do back 2.5 off the 5 and then back 2.5 with 1.5 twists off the 10?
Well, the back 2.5 off the 5 will be a development dive for back 3.5 tuck on 10 meters. Just he hasn't had the time or maybe the confidence to take it up to the 10 meter yet.
Okay. Konrad Lewandowski for City of Sheffield. Forward 3.5 from him.
Now you see him at the start of that dive. He throws his whole body down towards the water instead of lifting his chest up and jumping upwards. That then causes his somersault to be too fast for the 3.5 somersault pikes, and then he drifts it over.
End of round 1. Mr. T. Daly leading. Now, poor old Brandon had a terrible start. Really terrible start. 9.8 on his opening dive. We'll be hoping for a lot better of his back 2.5 somersaults.
Yeah, I don't think his head is really in the game today. I think that first round, getting ones in the first round, you know, you want to start really confidently, and you put a dive that you're quite familiar with normally in the first round, so that doesn't give you a lot of confidence then moving into the depths of your list. And round 2, that's not a great dive there.
Ben Cutmore will go next for Dive London. 54.6 start. This is the forward 3.5, one of 5 dives, 3 and above. Come out wherever you are. We know you're in there.
You can't see him. He's behind the pillar for his run up to the 3.5 somersaults. There he goes. And slightly short. Good start. But he came out a bit earlier the dive and thought it was there, reached towards the water, but he wasn't there yet.
48 to add to the 54 earlier. Yeah, Matty Lee probably not overly enamoured with a 61 on his arm stand. But now ups the ante degree of difficulty-wise from 3.3 to 3.6. Well, he's got his forward 4.5 right at the end. It's interesting. He puts it right at the end, but he does. Back 2.5 somersaults, 2.5 twists for Matty Lee.
And there he goes. Really, really nice dive there from Matty. Nice and solid. He's done it better, but 86.4 in a prelim, that's pretty good going.
Off and running after probably slightly below what he wanted for the arm stand. The back twister working well. Now Lucas Thompson. As we mentioned, the one didn't really work for him terribly well, but the 10 is where he feels most comfortable. Reverse 3.5 somersaults, 3.4 degree of difficulty for the 17-year-old from Edinburgh.
Now he made that look a little bit difficult. He didn't get it spinning as fast as I would like, or probably where he would like either. And he had to kick really high in order to make the 3.5 somersaults.
How easy is it to control that, though? Because we talk about spinning speed, but you know, to try and get that rotation right is an art in itself, isn't it?
It is. It's a mixture between balance from the diving board, like distance, strength out of the board, up your legs, and also the arm movement that goes with it.
Constantine Popovici of Romania, forward 3.5.
Now I feel like he could have had that, but he came out early, had a look at it, and then he kind of cut his arms under himself. Instead of just teeing his arms off and put them out by his side parallel and reaching into the water, undercutting yourself.
That was quite curious, actually, what he did there.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be good, and then suddenly it all went downhill.
13 years of age, Milo French of Southampton. Going through the routine again for the forward 3.5. Very popular dive. It's the dive where sometimes the divers disappear from our view, but in this case both Constantine and Milo have kept under that light so we can see where they are.
Another 3.5 pike. He's so small that he took most of the water down with him, but unfortunately he landed in a pike shape in the water.
31.5. Not going to get the job done with scores like that, I'm afraid. 13-year-old. Going to go down to the 7.5 platform next for rounds 3 and 4, which is where we find Josh Freeman with his arm stand. arm stand back double somersault, not just a single one off the 7.5 board here, but the double. 14 years of age. Got 3.1 to finish. That's off the 5-meter board, though. Oh, no, he's gone.
Oh, that wasn't confident at all. That won't be a failed dive, but he will be very marked down for that. And there you go, the judges. I think a 2 is probably quite fair there. I think a 2 is probably more realistically what I would have gone with on that dive. Shame that he couldn't control the handstand. 18
in total. This one now on the 10-meter board. Here's the arm stand. Oh, he's off quick too.
And another one doing a handstand. Not really showing control, but he nails the dive. Let's see what the judges make of it.
They've gone with him to a certain extent.
To a certain extent, but rule of thumb is if you don't show balance in the handstand, you've got to take a couple marks, maybe even 3 or 4 marks off, depending how.
Which I don't think they did they really? No.
They definitely took 2 off. It was definitely a 7.5 dive. They could have dropped to a 4.5.
Arm stand back double somersault, half a twist on the 10-meter board for Connor West now, Plymouth, who chooses to use that side of the board. Another thing that interests me about arm stands, where people position themselves for arm stands. Some go central, some go left, some go right. He's gone to the left as we look.
And that's a really weak flick there off the board, and the toes weren't pointed in the handstand either, and that's not a great dive there. Another arm stand. We're seeing quite a few in this round.
Tom Daly reserves his for round 4. It's the one with the triple somersault on it. But this is his lowest tariff dive. 3.2, great opener. 91.80 for Tom. This is inward. Make sure he gets good distance from the board on the 3.2. It's always safe on this.
Yeah, perfect distance from the board. Awesome tuck shape. He gets a really nice entry there, does Tom. And you see that judge too throwing out the 10s this morning.
Not counting, no. You've got to get a couple of other people to go with you on that. And at the moment, they're not. 89.6 after a 91. This is we're talking about world-class scoring here, not just prelim scoring. We're talking about world-class scoring, aren't we?
Yeah.
And they're not even the big tariff dives yet. Harrison Hartley, the 13-year-old from Sheffield, back 2.5 off the 7.5 meter board.
You know, that's a really nice dive. It's only about 2.5 somersaults tucked, and it is on the 7-meter platform, but everything in regard, that was a really nice dive, great entry.
13-year-old Harrison Hartley, followed by 13-year-old from Plymouth, Ewan McCabe, who's got a much higher list of dives in terms of DD here. He's got 3.2, a 3.3, and a 3.2. He's 13. That's a very high tariff program.
It is indeed, and he takes all the water down with him. He was slightly short of vertical, but again, because he is so slight, finds that easy to take the water down. Unfortunately, like I said, he was short, so he doesn't get scored greatly for it.
It is interesting, just in comparison there, the Sheffield diver, same age, 2.8s, 2.7s, 2.4s. He's going 3.3, 3.2, 3.2. Quite a big difference.
More degree of difficulty. Ewan has his dives off the 10-meter platform, and that would suggest that his wrists and his body's okay.
Forward 3.5 and Joe Stocking. The Leeds fans like it.
He ran out of room a little bit there on the end of the dive. He stepped back on the run-up, which is probably not a great feeling when you've got to do 3.5 somersaults after it.
Well, Tom Daly got 89 on this dive. A few divers back. What can Matthew Dixon do? on his inward 3.5.
Not quite there from Matthew Dixon. I might have given him the curse again like I did to some others yesterday and the day before. Unfortunately, I was talking about how consistent Matthew Dixon constantly is, and he came out too early at that dive, and unfortunately he couldn't make it round any further.
Knocked him back a bit, 48 on that one after a 75.9 start. After the arm stand to start with Owen Harrison, back down to the back 2.5 somersaults, 2.9.
Now that was just slightly too slow there. The pike shape was a little bit open as well, and drops it short on his back.
50.75. Just to say, we're looking at the development of our 13 and 14-year-olds. Jack Jefford, for example, has, again, 2 3.2s and a 3, and then with his arm stand, he goes 1.9. So he's got a pretty high tariff all the way through, and then finishes off with a 1.9. This is his reverse 2.5, 2.8.
He cheated his arms a little bit on the arm swing. You want to really reach and extend upwards towards the roof before getting into your tuck shape. He didn't manage to do that, and then he came out a little bit short of vertical for the entry.
44.8 for the Crystal Palace diver. Now from Denmark, Martin Christiansen, 11th at the moment. Early stages, of course, yet. 59 on his arm stand. He's got a quite high tariff program. 3.2, 3, and then 4, and then 6, and then 7. In with 3.5 on this.
That was a good start. A little bit slow. Want to pull a little bit tighter in that tuck shape there. And comes around for the entry. He gets his hands, but he's a little bit short because he was a bit slow in the somersault.
59 followed by a 65. Now, this young man had a really good start. Excellent in with 3.5. He's here to play is Kyle Cathari. Back 3.5 somersaults. He'll go for the forward 4.5 in 5. And actually, conversely, he's going to put his arm stand right at the end. And I don't know anybody else who does an arm stand right at the end.
That is quite risky. I thought that dive was going over because it looked like he leaned back on the start, but Kyle is very experienced and he's good under competition environment as well. And 79.2, almost hitting the 80 barrier on the back 3.5 tuck.
86 followed by 79, so yeah, very good indeed for Kyle, who will move into second place. Now, Joseph Ashley of City of Sheffield, on 7.5 metre board, he moves up to the 10. Reverse 2.5.
Now, just again, it's a little bit slow there. Looks like he's not firing on all cylinders this morning. Kicked out a little bit early and didn't compensate and lands short.
40.6. Again, we'll focus our attention on the 7.5 metre board for Dive London's Hugo Thomas. He'll do his first 3 dives off this one and then last 3 dives off the 10. This one's an inward 2.5.
A little double bounce there on the board. Looks a bit shifty before he took off, but then everything in the air was really nice. Other than being quite slow, everything was really nice. The entry was perfect.
Oh, 2.7. That's a good return. 59.4 for Hugo. Aidan Heslop, another of the Plymouth divers who's in contention here. Third place after round 1. Forward 3.5 somersaults. Doesn't have a forward 4.5, so he has a forward 3.5 here.
Yeah, nice dive there, Aidan. Pike shape was good. T-arms, hit the water with grace.
No, she's in another competition. Noah Williams has chosen to go with his arm stand. They all have to do them. All the regulations, as we say, all the different categories have to be fulfilled. Tick the old boxes of inward, reverse, forward, back, and arm stand. Arm stand back, double somersault, 2.5 twists. It's a big one, this, in terms of tariff. Those legs are going the wrong way at the moment. 3.6 degree of difficulty.
He's got it back under control. And the right amount of twists. And nice entry. A little bit short of vertical, but nothing to worry about too much. 64 points. Not his best, but he will still be in contention.
Yeah, he's got 2 twisting dives. That was one of them. The other one will be the final dive, the back 2.5 with 2.5 twists. That's 2.5 twists. Noah? Inward 3.5 now for Alfie Brown.
Now a little bit hesitant on the way out of the dive. It was a bit slow and he tucked his legs through, not fully extending out of the dive, but the entry was stunning.
Yeah, it keeps him right in there in 5th place at the 3rd mark. 69 followed by a 70. One more diver to come from Sheffield. That's Konrad Lewandowski. So the forward 3.5 followed by the back 2.5.
Oh, that was an open pike shape towards the end of that dive. Not sure about that. Needed to be a little bit tighter into the pike and a bit more convincing on the come out. And he spoons the entry as well, arching his back.
So round 2 done. At the moment, Tom Daly with a sizable lead after that 91 and 89. Brandon Foster will perform the forward 3.5 in the tuck position, worth 2.7.
And that was a bit slow, a little bit head down. Brandon not really entering this competition here. Doesn't look like he is very comfortable up there on the 10 metre this morning.
Well, off the back of that first dive, not really surprising, is it? 9.80.
Yeah.
Reverse 2.5.
Yeah, that will have shook him.
Ben Cutmore. You're seeing a range of arm stands. This one has attached to a double somersault with 1.5 twists. 3.2 the degree of difficulty. So not quite the 3.6 we saw in the previous round. And he's chosen to go that side. He's chosen to go right up against the railings pretty much. Look how tight that is.
Yeah, I've never really understood that on 10 metre. Going right onto the edge of the board when you could go right in the middle if you wanted to. But everything off the board was okay. The twist was fine, but he didn't really generate enough pace throughout the whole dive to get it round to his head.
It's an interesting choice to see. You'll see all the divers do different things. Some will go central. Tom goes pretty central. Matty goes pretty central. Others will go right across the left-hand side or the right-hand side for reasons that aren't particularly obvious. Reverse 3.5 for Matty Lee. Got it together on the back 2.5 for an 86, so he's right up there again.
And a little bit short there from Matty. He does sometimes have a problem on his reverse 3.5. It's really hit or miss, but when it's hit, He really gets it down, so maybe not a bad thing that he didn't waste it this morning and he's got one in the bank for later.
2 big dives off the back of his program, 3.6 the back, 3.5, and the forward 4.5. Now Lucas. Nice solid start for him, 72 and a 62. This is his lowest tariff dive, the one where he'll disappear and play peekaboo with us. Forward 3.5. Just see him through the slat there.
That was a bit heavy on the water there from Lucas. Somersault was good, but not really getting that entry going through the water, unfortunately.
Well, for the time being, he's second, but won't stay there, obviously, because there's some people with bigger marks already in the field, but it's top 8 he needs to get. Popovici is a couple of places outside that after round 2 from Romania. Reverse 3.5 somersaults. Good to see that some of the overseas contingent are here. We've had Spanish divers, we've had Singapore, we've got a Dane to come. There's the Romanian going for reverse 3.5.
That was a little bit too slow, but he did exactly the right thing. He held on in his tuck shape and then he kicked right to the roof. And he gets away with that one.
Yeah, not too bad. 72, 66 in round 3, so a couple of reasonable returns on the dives in 1 and 3. Now Milo French of Southampton. 2.8 degree of difficulty of this 7.5 meter board. Here comes his back 2.5.
He saved that. That was far away from the diving board. The tuck shape was a bit open, flat-footed. He kicks out with confidence, but he's too far back to get anything above a 7.
51.8 for Milo French. Best return of the morning so far. Well, it's afternoon now, it's 12:30. Josh Freeman for Plymouth Diving. Great start. Horrible arm stand. Horrible from this point of view. Now the back 2.5 off the 7.5, and he'll move up to the 10 for 2 more dives, and then down to the 5.
Oh, he's really drilled that entry. Again, slightly far back for a back 2.5 somersaults off 7 meter, but he drills the dive, and you can see him going above a 7 there.
58.80 for Josh Freeman. As we move on to another 13-year-olds. We had Milo French at 13, Josh Freeman 14, Robbie Lee 13 for Southampton. And he now moves up into his repertoire of 3 dives, 3, 3-2, 3-3, 3-2 is the forward 3.5.
He's let that one go. He splashes the water as he swims back to the pool side. He knows he's got it wrong. He over-rotates.
Just a 39 on that for Robbie Lee. Connor West of Plymouth Diving. A lot of home support for him. Hasn't really got going yet. The arm stand didn't bring him a great reward. Inward 2.5 off the 7.5 meter board. 3 off the high board. 3 off the 7.5. Ooh, legs.
Yeah. He was slightly late coming out of the dive, and he kind of needed to be because he hardly made it. But he kind of got his hands, but he was already, it was all too late. He was over already.
Well, hasn't really put a foot wrong. He's had some 10s, which haven't counted towards his score. He's had plenty of 9s. I'm talking, of course, about the former world champion. and Olympic bronze medalist of 2012. Tom Daly, forward 3.5, one twist, 91, followed by an 89. This one's got the twist added to the forward 3 we've seen already. Wow.
Well, this is a really technical dive that Tom performs. Now, it's no secret that he really doesn't like the back twist at all. He's had some really bad experiences on it, and he actually suffered from PTSD from the dive. He's put this dive in, and it's not quite gone right today, but it's a really, really technical dive, and Tom is one of the only males in the world to perform the dive.
But it looks quite old, because everybody else does forward 3.5. Just forward 3.5. But he has that extra twist in. It looks quite strange. It's kind of, oh, there's a little kink in it that wouldn't otherwise be there. But he's obviously intending to do it. Just doesn't look quite the same as the others. Harrison Hartley with the reverse 2.5 off the 10-meter board.
Now that was too slow from the start. He knew it and he kicked up, but there was just no time left before he hit the water, and he lands short.
I take it Tom's added that in for the extra DD, is he? That's why because he could just do a forward 3.5, couldn't he?
He could do a forward 3.5, but then when he goes into the high-level competitions, you know, he's not going to be in contention. He's the DD.
Ewan McCabe up next for Plymouth Diving. And he'll go for his arm stand off the 10-meter board. It's only a 2.4 though. Oh, he's not under control. Not under control at all.
Straight off the board. Unfortunately, another one falling victim to not holding a handstand on a handstand dive. Not a good idea.
That's why he gets 32.4, because that wasn't under control from the off. Joe Stocking now for City of Leeds. He'll end on the 7.5 board, but everything else on the 10. Again, he's moved right over there, not on an arm stand, but on the inward this time. Inward 3.5.
He managed to get that in, and I'm surprised because off the start he dropped his head, and I was worried he was going to go over and be worried about him making the dive, but he made the dive round. He squeezes the 3.5 somersaults in the time that was given to him.
Terrific start by Matthew Dixon with the arm stand, but the inward didn't quite work as well. Got a big dive to come in round 4, the forward 4.5, but for that, the back 3.5 for Matthew Dixon. Currently in 9th place.
There's the consistency that we're used to seeing from Matt Dixon. It's a nice dive, back 3.5 somersaults tucked, performed nicely. Good entry, 8s across the board. Cheeky 6.5 there. Maybe I missed something, or maybe the other judges missed it as well. Not sure why, but I'm sure he has a reason.
Well, that's a great joy of the system, of course, isn't it? The top and bottom are discarded. Now we go for the middle 3. And the middle 3 provide us with that times the degree of difficulty. Owen Harrison ready to go on his reverse 2.5. It looked like he was ready to go right then, but just composing himself.
Average dive there from Owen, a little bit far out. But tuck shape was nice. And entry was a little bit short of vertical.
Yeah, 51.80 for him. Now, Jack Jefford of Crystal Palace. Just working his way up to his 2 big dives off the 10-meter board, 3.2, 3.2. He's still on the 7.5 here, though. Back 2.5 somersaults with round 3.
He skipped that off the start, pulled his shoulders right back, And he leant back with the dive, and he let that just carry him over a vertical.
39.2 as we welcome in round 3 our Danish competitor, Martin Christiansen, 20 years of age. Seen this a bit. You saw the back 2.5. This is the back 3.5 from the Dane, which is obviously worth a little bit more. Go from a 2.8 up to a 3.3 on this.
And that was just a little bit short there. Slow to start the dive, slow getting the arms through and into the tuck shape. Bit loose. And then didn't finish the dive off.
He was 6th. I don't think that'll improve his position. In fact, if anything, he might slip out the top 8 after that. Oh, Kyle Cathari, 86 and a 79 on lower tariff dives so far. 3.4, reverse 3.5. He's got 3.6, 3.7, 3.6 ending, include that arm stand we mentioned. But it's the reverse 3.5 this time. Ooh.
Oh, and Kyle there arching his back into the water, unfortunately. That's not going to help his cause today. He's such a talented diver, and he needs better than that for this afternoon.
Well, he had 2 solid dives at the beginning, so that's eaten into it a little bit with a 39, but may not be catastrophic. Now Joseph Ashley for City of Sheffield. 7.5 meter board again. Back 2.5.
That's better. It's better than his previous round. Gets a better entry in rounds before. No, only from the 7 meter that time, but not a bad score.
51.8 for the 15-year-old from Sheffield. And now the 13-year-old from London. Good second round on the inward 2.5. And he got him 60 points. So can he top that up with the back 2.5 and do likewise? Slightly higher tariff as well at 2.8.
That's really unfortunate there, because the dive was really good and he was upright, but he just didn't reach back and have that commitment to the end of the dive to finish it off. So opportunity missed there a little bit.
47.6 for Hugo. Aidan Heslop, he's there or thereabouts in 4th place with a couple of solid openers. He's had one of his 3.6s. He's got 2 more to come. This one takes him down to 3.4 though. I beg your pardon, he's on 3.6 on this one. Arm stand back, double somersault, 2.5 twists. Again, right on the left-hand side of the board as we look.
It's literally almost off the left side of the board. And doesn't seem to put him off. He takes the water down with him, but he was a bit wobbly in the air, didn't look fully in control.
We're going to examine that on the video screen. 68.40. That's exactly the same dive that Noah Williams did in the previous round. This time round it is the reverse 3.5 for him, with his forward 4.5 to come in round 4. Solid at the moment, 6th place for Noah.
Oh, Noah. Noah. That's not what he wanted at all. He sometimes arches his dives round, but unfortunately, when you come out that early, there's no coming back from it. There's nothing that's going to solve that.
Moved outside the top 8 now, on the back of that. Alfie Brown of Plymouth, who's been the model of consistency. The problem for him is his arm stand in round 4 is only worth 1.9, so even if he gets himself up there, he will lose a bit in round 4, so this needs to be good. Reverse 2.5.
Now, he threw his head back off the board into the tuck shape, which sometimes makes the diver short of vertical because they're not sure where they are, but it didn't seem to throw him off too much. He did actually, went over of vertical, which is quite odd, throwing the head back. But not a bad dive. It's quite consistent.
At the moment we have one of our overseas divers, Konstantin Popovici, in the top 8, so that means we'll have 9 for later if it carried on like that. Konrad Lewandowski, City of Sheffield, with an inward 2.5.
He made it hard for himself. He threw his head down into the pike shape, almost looking down at his knees. But he saved it. He brought it round and quite clean going through the water.
So we'll have a look at the standings at the halfway stage of the men's platform preliminary. And this is how it's looking. All on that page will get through. If it stayed like that, the diver number 9 will get through as well. In fact, diver number 10 will get through as well, because we need diver number 11 as well. You get 2. You get 2 and then 2 would add. So yeah, we go right down to 11 for that one, if the 2 overseas divers were in the mix. But Tom Daly leading the way by quite some way.
Round 4,
Brandon Foster, well, we were saying, poor lad had such a poor start, and it's been preying on his mind ever since. What you don't need is an arm stand in the mix, because you've got to do it. And everybody else has been having real problems holding on to their pose in the arm stand. It's only a 1.9, so there's only 1 somersault off the board.
And he makes a comeback there. It's a really easy dive from the 10-meter board. It's only 1.9 degree of difficulty, but that will give him a lot more confidence. He only had 72 points so far in the competition, and he's just got 44 more points to add.
No, let's see if we can set him up. He's got his big dive right at the end. 3.3 back, 1.5 with 3.5 twists. Now, where's Ben Cutmore? 16th he is for Dive London. He is better than that. Can we show it on his inward 3.5 somersaults? That's up next, and then 3.3 and a 3.2 to finish.
Now that was a nice aggressive finish there from Ben. The start looked good, the tuck shape was nice, but unfortunately the aggressive come out was in the wrong place just slightly, and the chest was up, which meant that he landed short of vertical. But that's a shame, because it was really confident on the out.
56. Well, I think it's fair to say we had a curate's egg of a morning from Matty Lee. One very good back 2.5 somersaults with 2.5 twists, but either side, arm stand not so good, reverse not quite so good. In with 3.5, lowest tariff dive in this program. Dead center of the board, look at that.
That's better from Matty. That's a really nice dive. He can enter the water cleaner than that, but that's nice. Really nice dive.
Well, second best return of the morning for him. Some 9s in there which won't count, the 8.5s will. So it's 81.6. Now Lucas was going along like a train, and then suddenly the 3.5 rather derailed him a bit, but in with 3.5 from him. He'll be hoping to get up to Matty Lee proportions of 80 plus.
Lucas was too aggressive on the start then. Threw the arms down into the tuck shape. Knees up to the chest. And lands over.
That could do some real damage to his chances of making the final. That 30.40. Got a long way to climb back, and he doesn't have any big tariff dives to come. Everybody else is in the 3.6, 3.7 bracket. He's got 3.3 and 3.2, so that's going to take a little bit of recovering from. This man's in a final position at the moment, and he's got his big dive coming up right now. Back 3.5 in the pike position for Konstantin Popovici, who is currently claiming 8th place.
Now that's a hard dive, opting to do it in the pike position, and looks like needs to go back to training on that one. The legs bend as he comes out of the pike shape. He doesn't make the dive, and that's why he bent his legs, to try and avoid hurting himself on the entry.
Well, that could have opened the way for Martin Christiansen, Noah Williams, who are in range of the Romanian, or were. Milo French of Southampton, one of the 13-year-olds we talked about. Got 2 dives to come off the 10 to finish, but this is 7.5, inward 2.5.
Now he threw his head down. Again, we've seen that quite a few times today. You can see him slapping the water aggressively as he comes out towards the pool side.
Yeah, 24.3, not a great return on that. Arm stand to come. Josh Freeman, again, a bit of a mixed bag. Very good back 2.5 at 58, but it was the arm stand that let him down in round 2. All the dives so far for him, 7.5 meter board, but now at 2 from the 10. Including this one, the reverse 2.5 somersaults in the tuck position.
Now, in some competitions, you could say that that would have warranted a restart, because he did a lot of movement suggesting he was going to start the dive before he did it, but they didn't seem to pick up on that. And of course, if you start your arm swing and then you pause in between, that does count as a restart, but it's just a slight, maybe could class as a twitch before he went, and ended up actually with a really good reverse 2.5 tuck.
Took him a long time, but he got 67.2 for it. In with 3.5 now for Southampton's Robbie Lee.
That was short, unfortunately. Say what you see. That was short. And he didn't get it spinning. He pikes out of the dive, and he lands short vertical.
So auditioning to be the next host to catchphrase there for a minute. Connor West of Plymouth Diving, who finds himself 21st, so if he makes a bolt for the tape now, he's not going to get top 8, but it's all about finishing things off, and the last 2 dives will be from the 10 meter board. This one's 7.5 though. It's the back 2.5.
Unfortunately, the feet were flat in the tuck shape, and as he kicked out, so that to me would suggest he wasn't very confident about the dive.
And the marks reflect that, 37.80. But he is looking to cast Chris as a TV star. I'll take 10%.
5%.
10. Tom Daly, slightly off on his forward 3.5. He's going to go with his arm stand now. Chooses to do it in the middle of the program, which he always has. Never really changed that. Arm stand back, triple somersault, 3.5 degree of difficulty. Can he back up the great start he's had in round 1 and 2?
And, that was good balance in the arm stand there from Tom. I can see from the way he's coming out of the water that he's not 100% happy with the dive. Only 7.5, 7 from the judges this time round. He kind of messed up the entry just slightly and left it a little bit short of vertical, actually, which Tom on the back arm stand normally has got that on lock.
78.75, it's not a poor return, but he would have been hoping for a little bit more. It's 3.4, got 91, so that was slightly higher. Harrison Hartley, the 13-year-old, on this 7.5 meter board with the inward 2.5 somersaults.
That's not too bad. The head was buried on the end, which made him over-rotate, but the start was good, and the tuck shape was quite pleasant.
41.85 for Harrison. City of Sheffield's 13-year-old, followed by Plymouth Diving's 13-year-old, Ewan McCabe, who's doing all his dives off the 10. As we mentioned, doing a mix, but Ewan, everything up on the big board. Inward 3.5. 14th at the moment. Got 3.3 and a 3.2 to fish. If this was good, then he could be edging his way towards that top 8.
Fantastic entry. Absolutely nails the finish on the dive. It was quite slow, but everything else was pretty on point.
Yeah, judges have spotted that. They always spot the entries, don't they?
It's the last thing the judges see.
Yeah, I think it almost contributes more to a mark than anything else. They'll notice the nuances on the way down, but the entry is so key. 62.4 does lift him up just a little bit. Joe Stocking now with his reverse 2.5. Floated in.
Yeah, it was quite a floaty dive. Looked like he just cruised it, to be honest. Didn't put too much effort into it. Didn't want to overcook it. But unfortunately, he left it short instead.
Matthew Dixon moved into 4th place on the back of that great back 3.5. Now, first of the forward 4.5, so we're going to see from him and the others. We're 3.7, we're 3.8 in the 3 meter, but we're 3.7 in the 10. Spinning like a top.
And there's the 4.5 somersaults. This is quite new from Matthew Dixon. He lands short of vertical, but I'm trying to figure out if this is the first time he's ever competed it, or he's maybe competed it or debuted it once before. But that was not a bad dive at all for Matthew Dixon there.
70.30, so that will maintain his place in the top 5, which is where he needs to be. Top 8 will be fine, but top 5 is good. On to Owen Harrison with his inward 2.5. Ooh, what happened there?
Inward 2.5 on 10 meter. That is a hard dive to control from the 10 meter. It's a 5 meter dive really for most 10 meter males, but showing that it's hard to control, going over.
It's kind of his legs halfway down. That was what I was looking at, thinking, well, what's going on with his legs? About as he got to about the 5 meter board, thinking, okay. Not like he wanted to bail out, but it looked like his legs had other ideas. Jack Jefford, 10 meter board for him. Was on the 7.5, moved up again to the inward 3.5.
Now, to see someone that small doing a inward 3.5 somersaults tucked off a 10 meter board is quite impressive. I'm sure he's done it better, delivering 49.6 from the dive.
Yeah, just a bit more splash than he would have liked as well on the entry, but 9.6, not a bad return. It's okay. 3.2. Now, Martin Christiansen, who is knocking on the door and making that final and adding another Brit outside the top 8, if he does so. Reverse 3.5 somersaults for the Dane.
Now the technique on the start, I didn't like. It was a bit too shouldery for me, and actually the distance from the board was safe, but the way he did the dive looked like it could have been close.
Judge are giving an okay mark though. It's mid-range, 59.50. Now, Kyle, 86.79, and then a reverse to 39. But the back 2.5 with 2.5 twists up next for the 20-year-old from Dive London.
That was a big dive. He did it great yesterday, and he does it really nicely again in the morning for the men's individual. 77.4.
Yeah, so you take the round 2, round 1, round 4 marks together. Looks great. Just that dip down in round 3, but should still be okay for tonight, or later on today, as it will be. Joseph Ashley is up next with his arm stand back double somersault. You'll notice from the lighting he's not on the 10-meter board, but the 7.5. Last 2 dives will be 2.5 meters further up. Got to get this under control though, and everybody's having a problem with their arms. So not everybody, but a lot of people are having problems with their arm stands today.
Proving not difficult for this one. Nice tuck shape, obviously held the handstand very well, and nice and clean through the water. I must have missed something because a lot of the judges have marked that all over the place. So 6, 4.5, 5.5, 7.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
I'm
what
not quite
happened
sure
there.
either. I mean, it looked fine to me. He held it fine. There was no problem with the wobble, but yeah, the judges all seen that slightly differently, it seems. Hugo Thomas for Dive London. First time on the 10-meter board. I should say 7.5, isn't he there?
Again, he's so small to be up on that 10-meter board. I hope his wrists are okay.
Yeah, reverse 2.5 with forward 2.5, and he's got a forward 3.5 to finish. 39.2 for Hugo. Aidan Heslop, look at him, second place at the moment, the Plymouth diver. Off the back of a 76, a 64 and a 68. With another big dive to finish, the back 2.5 with 2 twists, but this is the inward 3.5, which we've seen a lot of divers do in this round.
What happened there? That was a really good somersault. Great start. Opened out a bit early on the pike shape, but that was okay. If he'd just held through the pike and waited until his hips were over, then he could have got the dive. But he
came out way too early.
He came out way too early and stretched towards the pool side instead of towards the water.
Real shame. That looked quite good. 2/3 of the way down. He decided to bail out, sadly, a bit too early, which is why he gets 43.2, not a bigger mark. Noah Williams, wow, he just needs to get a decent mark on this and he'll be back in the top 8. But it's a big, big risk and reward dive. The 4.5 somersaults. And here it comes. Oh, yes.
It is fantastic. Yes. Noah has absolutely killed it. Can't wait to see what the judges score that one.
Well, it's good. It's very good. We did say that would project him into the top 8. It's projected him at the moment to number 5. Good stuff, Noah Williams. That was brilliant.
I think if he had a different name, that could have gone even bigger. But unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes in the prelims.
We're saying Noah would start a flood. Alfie Brown with his arm stand.
Little reference to Noah's Ark there.
Yeah. Was it? Oh, I must have missed that.
And a little arm stand somersault from Alfie Brown. Again, low degree of difficulty, but executed nicely. But because it is low degree of difficulty, only 40 points returned.
And to our last competitor in round 4, that will be Konrad Lewandowski of Sheffield. Inward going 54, that's his highest mark so far. Reverse 2.5 coming up now for Konrad.
That just died a horrible death towards the end there. The somersault was slow, the start was slow, and the come out was even slow, and just no room to finish the dive.
So 4 down, 2 to come in the men's platform. As we move on to the first of our round 5 competitors. Back on the horse again. Hopefully now Brandon Foster after that poor start. Decent arm stand. Kind of his biggest mark so far. Inward 2.5 for the 17-year-old from Southampton.
Inward 2.5 somersault touch off 10 meter. Again, hard to control that dive because it is, well, there's almost too much room to complete it. But of course, he takes it down.
Good. Head back on very much.
It's good to see.
Ben Cutmore, 12th place. What's he got left? 3.3 and 3.2. Yeah, could do it. Odds are against it, but he could still work his way towards, and of course if one of the overseas divers gets in the top 8, there will be an extra place, or maybe 2. Back 3.5 somersaults. Coach Jane looks on from a distance.
Almost, and you can see Jane there flapping her arms because she knows that Ben almost executed that really well, but just left it a tiny bit short towards the end of the dive, and it was really just at the end where it went wrong.
Yeah, I think that may have done for his chances now of making the final for later, but we'll see. Okay, Matty Lee, what are we going to see from you on this forward 4.5? That's coming next. Sorry, back 3.5 on this one. Forward 4.5 right at the end is where he puts his 3.7.
Slight turn on the end as he went through the water. The start was good, and the press out was good too. Consistent again, but not as good as he can do it.
He can do so much better on that entry, can't he, on that one?
He can indeed.
68.4, Matty Lee, so yeah, kind of preempted the forward 4.5, which will be his final dive. Now, Lucas keeps his arm stand right to the end. It's a back 3.5 somersaults for the Scotsman in round 5.
It's not gone right there for Lucas. Unfortunately, too slow on the start. Similar thing that we saw in his on his reverse 3.5 somersaults. But unfortunately on this one, he didn't kick up. He just kicked short.
And is in danger of slipping out the top 8 on the back of that, I'm afraid. Because 39.6 doesn't cut it at the back end of the program when everybody's doing higher tariff dives. Not hitting 40, you are giving the others a chance to overtake you. Now Popovic, he was in a top 8 place, 10th at the moment. Capitalised maybe on this 3.2 inward 3.5.
And that was really early to open out, and he managed to recover it, but I don't think his entry was as good as it could have been because he came out so early.
But 70.4 is okay, and that may well move him closer. It will, I think, move him closer to the top 8. Could be in there at the end of this round. Now, Milo French has been up and down like a, well, whichever you want to use, really. 2 10s, 2 7.5s, back on the 10-meter board again. Nice and central for his arm stand. This one will have a double somersault and 1.5 twists attached to it.
Nice precise handstand, but untraditional way of performing the dive. He did the half twist and paused, and then one twist after the half twist. It looked quite disjointed to me, which that suggests that he's probably struggled with the dive and knowing where he is in the twist.
That looked like 2 dives in one.
Exactly,
so
it did.
Kind of put 2 dives together.
Yeah.
But 30.40 is what he gets. Josh Freeman was there and then he disappeared. He'll be back. Forward 2.5 with 1 twist, 2.9. His big dive is off the 5-meter board, which is in round 6.
Okay, we don't see many of these dives that fall 2.5 somersaults with 1 twist. Doing the twist first and then into the somersault. There's 2 ways of doing the dive. You can also spin first and twist in the middle of the dive and then into the water.
Robbie Lee for Southampton. Going to go with the back 3.5 somersaults for round 5. 13-year-old, as I mentioned, from Southampton.
And that's a big dive for Robbie, but unfortunately not executing it greatly. Kicking out early, like we've seen a lot of the guys this morning on the back 3.5s.
Connor West of Plymouth Diving, same lot of support for him here. Best dive was his first dive, 46.80. Again, then the other diver who's moved around the boards. He's up on the 10 again. Reverse 2.5 for Connor, 2.8.
Now the feet were flat again in the tuck shape and on the entry. Unfortunately, he was quite accurate with the dive, but also didn't take a lot of water down with him. Made quite a lot of splash on the way through.
Okay, before he does it, let's try and guess what mark Tom Day is going to get from his forward 4.5. Let's play a little game. What do you reckon?
Okay, I'm gonna go 8.
All right, what's the total mark?
Oh, total mark. Let's go 84.
Oh, no, I'm going 90 plus. I'll go 90 plus on this.
Okay, let's see.
Forward 4.5. He'll emerge from the shadows any moment now.
It's a good dive. He's a little bit lacking in height there. Kind of spin and span until he hit, but the entry was really nice.
You win.
I am closer.
You are.
79.55.
A lot of confidence going to get a 90 plus there, but not quite to be. 79.55. That'll come later. Oh, it's arm stand time, everybody. 7.5 meter board for Harrison Hartley. Arm stand back, double somersault.
Now, holds the arm stand well, but unfortunately we've seen another athlete go short of vertical. We've seen that quite a lot this morning in the men's 10-meter platform prelim.
24 exactly for Harrison Hartley. As we move on to Ewan McCabe, 13-year-old from Plymouth Diving. And this is the biggest dive in his list, 3.3. Back 3.5 somersaults, so finish with a back 2.5 with 1.5 twists, but he's 11th. And you know what? With the program he's got at the end, he could edge towards that top 8.
That's a really nice back 3.5 from Ewan. It's a great job. He's going to be really happy with that. Very accurate, placed on his head for 66 points.
Do you know, he'll be there or thereabouts after this round, I think. off the back of that, the 66. Might well be 9th or 10th potentially. Joe Stocking now of City of Leeds, 15th. We'll go down to the 7.5 metre board next dive, but this one on the 10. Back 2.5 somersaults. We lost him. We lost him and he lost himself.
He lost himself there. Got lost in his head probably. Back 2.5 pike is difficult from the 10 metre, and he made that very difficult for himself when he took off the board and barely span. And then he kicked short as well. I've said this once, I'll say it again, but that's a bad combination.
On to Matthew Dixon, 18-year-old from Plymouth, who had such a good British Nationals last year. Good, there's 3.5, 3.4. From round 2, it's been pretty good from Matt so far. 3 70+ scores. Bit close to the board.
He cut that off a little bit, and that for me was probably more than on the line. It was a little bit too close, but let's see if the judges. Yeah, we've got Judge 4 giving that 3.5. But of course, if you do think it is too close, I would encourage the judges to give it a 2, because when it is too close to the board, especially on platform, it's very dangerous. So we don't anyone making any contact with the board.
Yeah, there's no coming back from there. Well, Monique Gladding had example of that, didn't she? Was she?
She did. I was there, and it was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. Obviously, being a good friend to me as well.
Owen Harrison's forward. 3.5. There he goes, and in he goes.
Yep, he goes quickly from the whistle. No time to wait around, and maybe you should have thought a bit more about it. Goes a bit short.
If you're looking at Monique, she might be. Never know. Divers, once it's in the blood, divers like to know what's going on, don't they?
Yeah.
Never really get out of your system, do you?
Not really, no.
Jack Jefford for Crystal Palace. Now, this is his biggest dive of the programme. Back 2.5 somersaults, 2.5 twists. 7th. Oh, sorry, this is Martin. Oh, we've jumped one, have we? We've jumped one. So Martin Christiansen is back 2.5 somersaults, 2.5 twists.
Yeah, we've jumped one, and that is a big dive for Martin.
No, we were right. We were right. They were wrong. That was Jack Jefford. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Thought that looked wrong.
They've got it wrong on the board here. That's confused everybody now, because that was supposed to be Jack. It is Jack. That is Jack, definitely. So they're confused. They've got them around the wrong way.
Okay. It's confusing.
Well, it came up on the board as Martin Christiansen, but he's next. So they've got it round the wrong way. Because that's definitely Jack Jefford walking off there. Right, okay.
Yeah, that was confusing.
That was not our mistake, by the way.
No.
That was what came up on the board. I'm looking up thinking, okay, I thought Jack had dropped out and we'd gone on to Martin, but no. That was Jack, and this is Martin. Thanks, everybody. Looking up
there you go.
I'm totally confused now, but we're back on track, I hope. With back 2.5 somersaults, 2.5 twists for Dane, who is he great? Well, he's 7th.
Well, that's a big dive, but it's an even bigger dive if you cut all the height off like he just did on the start, leaving yourself almost no room to complete the dive, and proving how difficult that can be when you do that, landing short of vertical.
The 7.80, that might just hamper his chances of making the top 8. And to say again, if he does make top 8, that will leave another space for another British diver to go in for the final. Carl Cathari, with the exception of round 3, this looked very, very good. Now, how good's he going to look on the forward 4.5? Not making any predictions on this one, but if he gets a decent score, I think he's pretty much on his way to the final.
It's a bit short. He comes out early and has a look at the dive, but he gets his hands on the finish. Now, that's actually quite a hard one to judge. And I thought so there. You've got a 5.5 and you've got a 7. So the judge is a little bit split, a bit confused of what to give that. And so was I in a way.
66 is okay. And because it's a high tariff dive, it's going to be obviously worthy of a few more points. So that may be almost the insurance card you need to the final. Joseph Ashley now for City of Sheffield is back up on the 10 for the last 2 dives, including this inward 3.5.
That's a good save. He threw his head down, and that normally means going over off vertical, especially on the forward and inward rotations, but he lifts his head up, he still goes over, and he gets penalised for that.
Hugo Thomas of Dive London is up next with a forward 2.5 somersaults and 1 twist, 18th place. So really just trying to finish off his program as best he can, the 13-year-old. Going through what I call the Tom Daley routine. Just imagining the dive and then going through the dive physically on that board.
What a beautiful finish there for Hugo. Awesome entry. Parts the water. Sails through. 63.8.
That will move him up a couple of spots at least. Maybe a few more. Now, Hayden Heslop, despite having a 43.2 in round 4, is still in the top 6. And has a huge dive right at the end. Very big dive to come yet, but this is a few DD down. A back 3.5 somersaults for the local lad, 16, Adrian.
There's a back 3.5, another one going short of vertical. Didn't give it enough juice on the start, didn't give it enough beans. And goes short of vertical, unfortunately, there.
44.55 for Aiden. Noah in 5th. Noah Williams, back 3.5 somersaults. Huge score on that forward 4.5, 88. Back to reality with a back 3.5 somersaults now.
Noah's just, that's really disappointing, to be honest, from Noah. Really disappointing. I'm quite shocked there for him to be getting 2s on his back 3.5 pike. It's a new dive for him, so can't expect too much, but he needed to do much better than that in order to get through.
Well, he's still 7th. We have 2 more to go, so I think he's okay. Yeah, I think he'll be okay. Might be 8th after this. It's on the 5-meter board for Alfie Brown. He goes back up to the 10. This is the rather curious one for me.
And that looks pretty ready for me to go up to the 10-meter. It looks like he spots the dive well. He does the 2.5 somersaults. He lands it very comfortably on his head. Now, if I was his coach, I'd be telling him to get the hell up there and get the 3.5
All words
on
to
the
that
10
extent. Yes. Yeah, I don't get it, because the rest of the program's off the 10. It's not like the others who are doing a 7.5 mix. It's 10, 10, 10, 10, 5, 10. Don't get it. Don't get it. Put it on 7.5 if you have to. Konrad Lewandowski's arm stand is a back double somersault with 1.5 twists. Not vertical yet. Nearly there.
And there we go. Right at the last minute, gets up to vertical. Was, for me, a little bit of an eyesore, being slightly short of vertical in the arm stand. I don't know if that's his technique or if he just couldn't quite get the balance right, but drifted a little bit far back from the board, and again, another one going short of vertical at the end.
52.8 on that, so here we go. Last round, Tom Daley over 400. Matty Lee 51 points behind. Carl Cathari, Dixon, Aidan Hislop Alfie Brown, Konstantin Popovici and Noah Williams. That'll add one more, which will be Ewan McCabe at the moment, making it through. That's the 9 who will qualify for the final as things stand. Lucas in 11th. Got some work to do.
Yeah, unfortunate there from Lucas. He just didn't really have his best day. At the start of the competition, he opened it up really well, but he just fell off the gas towards the end.
As we mentioned, he's got his arm stand in round 6. Explain that one to me, I don't get it. But it's what suits him, as indeed Kyle has. Kyle has his in round 6 as well. Okay, into the final round of the prelims of the men's platform. And Brandon Foster has his biggest dive. Had a shocking start, but really has got himself back in position again and got his head back on. Hopefully this will not unsettle him. The back 1.5 somersaults, 3.5 twists.
Oh, and that was all over the place, if I'm honest. The twist, 3.5 twists there. And the legs came apart, but not only that, I thought he was going to get completely lost in his twist, which is one of the worst things that can happen as a diver. It's so disorientating. I saw an imperfection in the twist. I saw him go into a pike, which is closely related to losing where you are.
Ben Cutmore to finish. Not going to make the final later on today, sadly. But see what he can do to finish off with a back 2.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists.
Solid finish from Ben Cutmore. He's had some good dives. He's had some not so good dives. But he finishes with 73.6.
And finishes on 3:11.95. Matty, not quite sure what to make of Matty's programme this morning. He's had some highs, he's had some not quite so good. He hasn't really dropped a dive, but he's had some...
It's been a mixed bag,
yeah,
hasn't it?
Slightly less than impressive dives. But as we know, all can be put right if you do a great forward 4.5. Everybody forgets about what happened before. His final dive is the big one, 3.7.
And Matty just not getting that right. The start looked good, and last year at Nationals, I think he got over 100 points on his forward 4.5. It was one of the best ones this pool has probably ever seen, but not today.
Well, he was in second place. That will, I think, probably jeopardise second place. Won't jeopardise the final, though. I think 38 will be good enough to get him through, because there's quite a big gap there between him and the rest. So, but this man needs something quite exceptional. I say man, he's what, 17 now, but we'll call him that. Now he goes right centre of the board. Now look how many arm stands have been right on the left or right on the right. He goes as central as you could get for this. Arm stand, back, double somersault, 1.5 twists. Well, if he could get 8s and 9s here, he's got a chance.
I like the way he does that. He delays the twist. He sets himself off the board. It's really aesthetically pleasing. He did drift over a little bit of vertical. If he'd have nailed that, then I would have gone with him.
Got 7s, 327. Don't think it's going to be quite enough. This man, though, is currently in a top 8 position in 7th, which will open up another place for a British diver for later if he were to claim it. Romania's Konstantin Popovici with a back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists. Apart from round 4, he's been pretty consistent all the way through. He's in the final.
And there you go. Back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists. Nicely executed there. Steady.
355.50, so highest mark we've seen so far, total mark that is. So Popovici will be back later. 13-year-old from Southampton, Milo French. A great back 2.5, but everything else is a bit, well, reverse 2.5 was okay too, but, well, here's the back 2.5 again, but with 1.5 twist sounded.
Now that was just wrong a little bit from the start. Shoulders went back, and then in turn jumped back from the diving board. The rest of the dive was fine, but of course that meant that all of his momentum was carried on towards the end of the dive, and he went over.
Back 2.5 done off the 7.5 metre board, the back 2.5 with 1.5 twist off the 10 metre board. Milo. Josh Freeman. Well, everything else has been on the 10 metre board up till now. Oh, sorry, the 7.5 and 10. Now he's down to the 5. For his biggest dive, tariff-wise, 3.1, inward 2.5.
And maybe that one needs a little bit more development. The hips didn't come over, and that meant it was difficult for him to finish the inward 2.5 somersaults tucked. So taking that to the 10 metre platform would probably be quite difficult at this stage.
Robbie Lee up next for Southampton. 13-year-old's got his last dive, 22 in terms of ranking at the moment. And from round 3 onwards, got a fairly high tariff program for a 13-year-old. Back 2.5 with 1.5 twist to conclude.
Brilliant entry there. That's a nice dive to finish off a list. Well done, Robbie.
Yeah, 72. Nice mark too. That's way above anything else he's got here today. 47 was his best before that. 72 for Robbie Lee. Connor West, Plymouth diver, will finish off with forward 2.5 with 1 twist, and he's 3 of his dives from the 7.5 board, 3 from the 10. He'll finish on the 10.
And he disappeared. That kind of confused me. I wasn't expecting that, because it looked like he didn't really have a lot of tension as he was flying through the air. And the twist was very open. But he got his hands on it, and he went through the water very nicely. Weird to see an entry that good with low scores.
Now, kind of working on the basis of most divers like to put their best dive either at the front or the back. Is this Tom's favourite dive?
He does love a back 3.5 somersaults piked.
Well, that's what he's got to finish. Because you think somebody of his calibre obviously chooses his dive order meticulously and doesn't want to end on something he doesn't like very much.
He's ended on quite a few different dives over the years. Used to end on the reverse 3.5 somersaults tucked, but now he opens on it.
Ooh.
And a little bit short of vertical there again from Tom, but it doesn't need to be perfect this morning. It just needs to be good enough. And 480 worldwide in any prelim will get you through to a final.
Yeah, he'll be looking to get well over 500 tonight or later on today, but 480 will get the job very well done in the morning. No worries in that respect. Harrison Hartley, the 13-year-old from the city of Sheffield, will complete his routine with a slightly different version of the dive we saw from Robbie Lee, with a twist less. Back 2.5 with half a twist.
And again, nice finish. He's obviously confident with the dive. Does the half twist, gets into the pike shape, and nice finish.
Now Ewan McCabe to finish. Now Ewan is 9th. That may be good enough to get through, because Popovic has made the final. So that will open up one more space. It'll be great for the home fans to have another diver to cheer. They'll still think of Tom as their own, of course, all the years he spent here, but how good would it be to have, well, Aidan Heslop and him make the final?
And that was a nice finish there. Let's see how many points he scores on this one. He gets 67.2. It's a good finish.
Yeah, I think he's there. I think he's definitely there. In terms of top 9 place, and top 9 will be good enough. Joe Stocking had a shocking round 5, but 6 is got the back 1.5 somersaults, 2.5 twists to conclude off the 7.5 meter board.
And Joe landing a little bit short there. The twist part of the dive, which was most of the dive, was good, but his repike unfortunately wasn't very square, and that kind of left him short of vertical.
Now, Matthew Dixon, who was as good as in the final, but needs to just underline it here, 4th place. And to conclude, he'll have his equal low tariff dive, 3.2, back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists.
Now, consistent, a little bit legs bent as he came off the twist into the pike, I seem to notice, but still 70.4 to finish off his list, and around the 380, 390 area.
Yeah, looks like he might
not over 400.
Yeah, not finishing over 400, but at the moment in 2nd place. So another final place secured for Matthew Dixon. Popovich is in there too. Owen Harrison, 16th, so no chance of him making it, but it's all about experience with the biggest dive of his program, which is the back 1.5 with 3.5 twists. Gosh, there's a lot in this.
Very good twister is Owen Harrison, but in this case, the twist part of the dive was awesome. Don't know how he does that without getting lost. So clear in his twist, but going over a vertical, unfortunately, the last dive in his list.
I can confirm for you, this is Jack Jefford. Definitely. Not Martin Christiansen, but Jack Jefford. He's going to go very central on his arm stand. It's only worth 1.9 though, because it's only...
And he's already gone, which means he will get marked down for that dive, because obviously you've got to demonstrate that you're in control of the arm stand. And he is penalised. The dive itself was really nice. It's a shame he didn't have more control.
Well, it shows you the vagaries of the arm stand. We've had so many people come close to failing or getting very low marks on theirs. Now, the forward 4.5 from Martin Christiansen. The majority of divers are not doing it in this competition, or might be, they will be in the final, of course, but now, where is he? He's 10th. Well, it's a big tariff dive. If he gets it right, he'll climb into the top 8. We might have 2 Brits added to the final for tonight.
And that's going wrong. That's going to hurt his face, I think. Unfortunately, didn't get it moving. Didn't jump high enough there. Only 33.3.
Yeah.
When you're getting lower than 30 points, or around 30 points on a 4.5, that's when it starts getting quite painful.
Well, no return for him for tonight, but every chance of a return here from Carl Catharin. I say, you know, I'm trying to get in the mind of a diver here, which I never have been, as to why you'd put your arm stand at the back. The last thing you do. But Carl seems to think it works fine for him. Matty puts his forward 4.5 at the end. Carl puts his in round 5. Different strokes for different folks.
And a little bit spooned on the entry there. You could see the dive itself was okay. Could have been a little bit more aggressive on the start. The twist position looked okay to me, but when he came round, he arched his back a little bit instead of being in a nice dish position, ready for the entry. So throws up a lot of splash.
Would that be down to the coach or the diver, or a combination of both, the dive order that they choose?
Probably a bit of both. Probably a bit of both. Analysis in training on the run-outs in the list of what is working and what isn't.
4.3.5, by the way, for Pashley to finish.
Nice steady finish. He's obviously quite comfortable with the dive. Pikes out, nice and confident. Pretty much at the curtain.
6.5, 6, 6.5, 6.5.
Good finish.
6.5, 6.5, 6.
But no return later on. Hugo Thomas, 15th, going into the final round. For the only time he touches 3.0. Best mark was on that forward 2.5, got 63 on that. I've gone down for a forward 3. Oh, he is. So we came to the edge of the board. I thought he's not doing a forward 3.5 then, but he is.
He's just measuring his takeoff in case he has an accident. Not measuring it. Sometimes these athletes know exactly where they're going to take off, but they do the measurement anyway just to reinforce the memory. And he gets the start right, so measuring the takeoff maybe was a good idea, but unfortunately lands over of vertical for his last dive, only 34.5.
So Aidan Heslop looks like he's going to be making the final for later on today. Lots of local support, as you might imagine, for the Plymouth man. 16 years of age. Started like a train. It's kind of gone a little bit off the rails last two. Time to get the buffet car back on. Back 2.5 somersaults, 2.5 twists. Aidan Heslop. Equally the biggest dive he's got.
Almost. Aidan competed at Gold Coast Commonwealth Games representing Wales, and this dive was unfortunately a little bit short, not using maybe that experience that he gained from the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games on that dive.
But he will be okay. Yes, he will. No worries there in terms of him making the final. Definitely confirmed. Tom Daly, Carl Cathari, Matthew Dixon, Matty Lee, Konstantin Popovici, all there. I think Aidan Heslop's there as well. Here comes Noah Williams to make his place in there.
Awesome. Really nice dive. Slightly bent legs in the repike, but that's why he's been marked down slightly, but almost still 80 points. He needed that one.
He certainly did. And looks like... Okay, so Lucas Thompson at the moment's got the last place because they'll add one extra, but Alfie Brown will put him out of contention if he can nail this. The back 2.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists. If he gets a decent score on this, he makes the final, and Lucas Thompson does not.
Nice entry to finish off the list, but unfortunately a little bit slow on the start of the dive.
Yeah, 46.40, not high score, but it'll be good enough because of Popovici. They'll add an extra Brit to the lineup, and it will be he who will make it, not Lucas Thompson. Konrad Lewandowski to complete his program. Back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists.
That's not the way you want to finish. Unfortunately, goes over a vertical, throws his arms back, collects his legs in a twist, and he's over.
And that is a 40 to round things off, so we'll give you all the completed scores and who has made it and who hasn't. Look at that, 480. Look at the big gap there, 72 points between 1 and 2. Carl Cathari edging up into second. Matthew Dixon, Matty Lee, Noah Williams, Konstantin Popovici, Aidan Heslop, Ewan McCabe. So there's one more to add. That's Alfie Brown, who will claim that extra place because of the overseas diver in there. Lucas Thompson will miss out, as indeed everybody else on that list will. Shame. And that's how everybody else performed today. Everybody over 200 except for Brandon Foss, who had that terrible start. But everybody else making it over 200. So that completes the morning program, the women's 3-meter and the men's platform prelims. We'll be back later on for the finals of both. Hope you join us. It's going to be a very interesting one. I'm expecting Tom Daly on that evidence to go over 500 probably today, almost certainly. So you can maybe push him. And the women's, well, that's wide open in the 3-meter. So all the action coming to you from the Plymouth Live Centre a little bit later on today. Thank you for your company this morning and early afternoon. Chris Mears and Bob Ballard saying thank you for your company, and we'll see you a little bit later on. Bye-bye.
The latest in tech suit innovation. Frictionless fiber construction. Surface lift technology. Endo compression cage. Seamless exo shell. Tier Benzo. Battleborn.